Welcome, I'll call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. The first matter of business is to approve the minutes of August 27th. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Seconded.
You got that, Con?
Yep.
Okay. Have we read them over and is there any discussion?
Good.
And no discussion? Okay. All those in favor of approving the minutes?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. We'll move on. I will read these additions and deletions and we will deal with them later in the agenda. Correspondence from regarding a state reappraisal. Correspondence from Susan Hunt. New business planning commission. New business town hall use request. Eric Jacobs. New business common use request. Trunk or tree. And then new business town hall use, Leland and Gray musical rehearsals. Members of the public are welcome. And then correspondence. Katie is going to read the correspondence that we have had. Oh, does any of the members of the public want to speak?
I would like to at some point.
Okay.
Does it have to be right now, or?
It can be.
It can be now.
Okay, my name is Lindsay. I own the house right on Route 30 that Michelle Hochberger used to own, in between Diana Lane and what was Noah's house. I've owned that house for the past 3 years and I just bought Noah's house. So great change in town. But unrelated to that is the septic group that I'm a part of by being on that property and the new property that I purchased. I now have 2 properties on that septic system. It's on it's on town property and the infrastructure is under the sidewalks and in some of the town property. But it's privately maintained by the 8 homes, and Diana Lane has been the one in charge of organizing that, and at some point she would like to get rid of that responsibility. She had asked me last year if I can take on that responsibility. I told her I wanted to figure out what that means and what that involves, but basically Diana Lane fronts the money and pays to get our septic system. Previously we were getting it mowed, some tanks switched and pumped, and that was split among 8 properties, and then she was getting paid back by the 8 properties, which works as long as everyone pays. So the idea of taking over that is a little questionable, why it's done this way, why I would have to take on that financial responsibility and then ask and make sure that people pay me back. In the past, she had a lien out on Liz Gary's property and had to wait, 10 years to be reimbursed for the septic costs. Meanwhile, we all have to be able to flush our toilet, so we all get to use the system. There's no way of shutting off individual properties. There's no way of saying you didn't pay, so let's shut it off. And so it's an old system, it's an old agreement, and it concerns me as a property owner, especially with 2 properties on it, that the cost is not a lot. It was around $160 last year for each of the homes. That's not the issue. The issue is if anything goes wrong with the septic system and the bill turns into a $60,000 bill, am I paying that and then hoping my neighbors reimburse me? And so there's just a lot of concerns on my end with that. And I'd like to figure out how the town can be a part of managing that system, in the middle as the person fronting the money. I don't know exactly how we need to make it work, but I don't think any one person should be fronting money and then hoping their neighbors pay them. It worked-ish. But I'm not willing to take that on as an individual, and I don't think any one person should take it on. So I guess a future, meeting or vote or some kind of process to figure out how we can remediate the issue and get it to be a town issue and not a property owner issue. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
I'm gonna think out loud. I wonder if, we should do research. You can come in and research the town records, we can help and research the town records, come back together with data in front of us, like the history of it.
Right.
And maybe 70 years ago, or whenever it happened, I'm looking at our plumber friend over here, maybe, 60, 70 years ago when it was developed, you couldn't put a septic system there. Maybe now, today, with more modern septic systems, each house could possibly have their own. I don't know. There might be other things. I'm not sure the town would say, yeah, we'll take on the financial responsibility. I'm not sure of that. But we could do research, and including talking to a plumber, saying, is it feasible for me to think about having my own sewer system here at my house? Or having a shared one with your two properties now?
Right. Yeah, and I'm trying to look out for other property owners that aren't even in state, that they do pay their portion, and every year they pay, and they say, that's fine, whatever you guys are doing, we'll pay the $160. So it's not just my own interest, but it's also in the interest of the town, because if these houses don't have a working septic system, you can't get property taxes from them. Everyone's going to abandon them at some point, and they're not going to be worth anything. And there are 8 houses that are right on the road that's going to look like a ghost town for 8 properties in a row.
Oh, and it used to be beautiful when it was businesses, like the little hardware store and a little, pharmacy and corner store, and it made us feel like a town. So I hate to see them abandoned, as you say.
Right,
I
and I don't want that either. Of course, it's not in my best interest.
No,
as a
but
property owner.
I think it would be good if you do some research, we'll do some research, and then we talk about it again.
Yeah.
And I would encourage you, if you have a plumber friend, to say, is there a modern technology that I could just get my own plumbing system and not be part of the West Street sewer any longer?
Right. And then it's ultimately going to fall on some other private citizen if I don't handle it. So I understand that I could opt out of it and say, I'll put my 2 properties in a holding tank and get the holding tank pumped twice a year, or whatever small situation I could figure out. But regardless, it's going to be a future issue for someone else.
No, but they might do the same thing with more modern technology than there was 100 years ago.
Right. And it's all working right now, everything is fine with it. It's just about being proactive and saying, let's figure out what's the long term before I take over this responsibility or someone else takes it over from Diana, of figuring out, is this actually the best way? Should someone take it over in the condition it is and with the paperwork that we have, or should we start here and figure out a better plan moving forward?
We're happy to talk about it.
Yeah.
And you're welcome to stay for the whole
Yeah,
meeting if you'd like. See, democracy in action. Yes,
I've got a couple of things.
yes.
I wanted to follow up on the generator. When's that gonna be installed, or where are you at with that?
I can speak to that. We filled out 2 grant pre-applications for hazard mitigation grant funding. I spoke to the woman just last week about the status of those pre-applications. We put one separate application in for each generator, so one for town hall and one for the town garage. The decisions should be coming down pretty soon, in the next couple weeks. And then if they choose to fund those 2 of the 7 pre-applications that we filled out, the official application process starts in January. And what I expected to do about that was reach out to the planning commission after we get the decision on whether or not the generators will be funded by the or whether or not we're invited to apply in January, and get the rest of the information. We used the amounts from that paperwork you had already given us. You gave us a whole bunch of paperwork a couple weeks ago about the generators, and we had it at the meeting, so that those are the numbers that we used for the pre-application.
Okay, all this weren't necessarily born here, but just as a short story, Columbus Day weekend of 1987, I woke up to 2 feet of heavy wet snow in Bennington. Most of the trees still had leaves, which meant that Most of the trees came down. So we all remember what happened in March 2 years ago with a similar heavy wet snow. The generator needs to be done ASAP. That's just my opinion. I've got a couple other quick things.
Let me speak one more thing
Sure.
about that. The beauty of this decision coming down really soon is that we're going into budget season. So we're going into budget season, so we're about to write the budget. So we should be able to take this information that we get on whether or not they say that they're gonna help us fund this or fund it for us. There's no match with those hazard mitigation grants. If they say no, we can always choose to build it into next year's budget. So that is plan B.
Okay, excellent. That's it. Just,
One of the questions on your generator, what are you gonna cover in each building?
What are you gonna?
What's the coverage from your generator? I'm assuming you're going with an automatic generator. What's the coverage gonna be in the town hall? What's the coverage gonna be in the town garage?
I don't know about town hall, the garage is gonna cover everything.
You're gonna cover for iron amp service?
Yeah.
Wow. What about here?
What's that?
What about here?
I don't know anything about here.
You just want it in?
I did a lot of research on the town garage, followed up with a couple of contractors. I didn't do any work here.
But you're asking for a generator here.
The
Select board.
grant is asked
Yeah.
for a generator.
But you don't know what you're covering and don't know how you're gonna deal with it. You just want it installed. That's what you're asking.
Well, it's a step in the right direction, doesn't mean they have to use it,
Oh,
right?
there's certain things that go on
Yeah,
in the world that, and especially here, it's a three-phase service. Single phase to everything but the whistle on the top of the building. So you've got to figure out how to segregate it and what you're going to cover. Is that single phase generator, three-phase generator? You're going to cut the whole building. The service down there right now is inadequate. The meter's inside. We looked at this years ago. I was looking at pushing the service outside, doing a brand new upgrade. So I'm coming into this halfway into your ordeal. I just listen and I'm like, we want a generator now, but we don't know what we're doing.
Yeah,
We just want it installed. So
the part of the motivation for the generator here is also with the town hall is kind of like an emergency response
So I
shelter.
understand the necessity of it. And
Yes, so that's like why we're looking into
Sure.
it, but we don't have like the full details as you're saying, which is really important to consider. For
He
sure.
just wants it installed before we get the next one.
does it have to be installed, or do you have to just, I mean, can you just get the generator and have it so that when we're ready for the next step, it will be here? I mean,
We're working on it.
I mean, is there, do we have to hook it up?
Works yet.
What was that?
We don't have any generator in the works yet.
But you're saying if you got it.
It was my understanding that when that packet was provided to us, that the planning commission was asking us to fund a generator for the town hall and fund a generator for the town garage. So we took all of that information that you had given us and we put those numbers into the grant pre-application. We didn't have any members of the planning commission here the night that we discussed it, so we weren't able to ask any questions about it at that time, and we had a deadline for the pre-application, so we figured that since the generators fell under the criteria, we would put them in there, and then when the grant response came back, we would ask the planning commission to work out what the details were so we knew what we were asking for and making a plan going forward. That's what I was understanding about how that conversation went.
Our request to the select board was for the garage, nothing to do with town hall.
The paperwork you gave us had town hall. That stack of paper. Remember the meeting that you weren't here and?
I remember what was provided and there was nothing about town hall.
Okay. We know.
A couple of other quick little things to follow up on. A&R, did we get anything in writing from A&R about the town garage?
Jeremy,
No,
Oh, we requested that.
I did request it.
Okay.
He basically said if he needs something, I can write something.
Okay, let's protect the town and make sure we get something on that. I also I heard rumors in town about an accident, and I'd like to know more about that.
yeah, that's gonna be under the highway
Oh, okay,
report.
sorry, okay. As far as ADA and the front access.
Yep, you're on the agenda.
Okay.
They're on hand.
I can't really stay much longer, so I thought I'd try and get some of that out of the way, but okay.
Well, it's up to the board if we wanna push, let's see where it is.
Some new business.
New business. At the very end, planning commission, what's the, we need a motion and a second to move it.
Karen, move it up after the reports, before old business.
I do a report.
Okay,
Okay, I make a motion that we move the planning commission item E under new business up to be coming right after the reports before old business.
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, so if that suits you, you are going to be right before old business.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Kate, if you would please read the correspondence that we have.
Okay. So we received 3 correspondence. The first one was received on July 29th. Select Board, I am inquiring what the plan is for the old grader. Will it be fixed? I see it still sitting up at Windham, so wondering why it hasn't been taken somewhere to get an estimate on the repairs. I have heard rumor that the town plans on selling it, but not worth much. I have a hard time believing it's not worth fixing. I guess the new grader is being leased for now, still looking into how this came about without much notice to the townspeople. New backhoe as well. A major concern that I have is with the bridge rail on at least 3 of the bridges on Simpson Brook Road. The rail is hanging off the bridges with no protection to the traveling public at all. This has been known for a while and would like to know what the plan is for these repairs. The town should be worrying about this issue before someone gets hurt and way before purchasing new equipment. I am going to try to get to the next meeting to discuss. Thanks, Chad Greenwood.
Okay. Shall we just read them and move on, or shall we
Is
discuss?
there any discussion?
Any?
Anything that the board wants that either ask questions or make a statement?
I understand that somebody from V-Trans was up on Simpson Brook Road looking at the bridges. And I don't know any more than that.
Can everybody hear us out there?
If I can just say, so in terms of his first question, which is about the old grader, that's gonna be addressed
In the
or
hard
discussed further under action items. And then the repairs to Simpson Brook guardrails, I think Jeremy can address that if you'd like.
I just was waiting for our summer projects to be done, and it's next on my list of things to do. It's one of them. I'm gonna have to rent a piece of equipment to do it because it's not. It's you know, it's 10 feet off the water. And I need to get over the side of the bridge to weld on the bridge. So we have to discuss that as well. So yeah, the other one's a simple fix. I've been so busy this summer. You know, not enough time, not enough guys, not enough money. Pretty much how what it was now too.
Do you think it'll be done before the winter?
Yes,
Or
I
do you
would,
think
it
it'll
would definitely be done before.
Okay.
Any further discussion on Chad Greenwood's correspondence?
Maybe we could revisit these questions about Simpson Brook at the next meeting, at the next highway report, just to give an update on where we're at then. Since you'll be done with your summer projects by then, and then we can kind of update them on what's going on.
I think we'll be revisiting both, right?
Yeah.
Because we'll be talking about the old grader but make sure to revisit this one. Okay, moving on to the reappraisal.
Yeah, so this is correspondence between our listers and,
The state of Vermont.
the state of Vermont, Jill Remnick. The first one is June 21st, 2024. Helen or the other appraisers were reaching out to the state of Vermont. Townsend received the 2024 reappraisal order, but we've been unable to find a company to take the job. We sent out the attached RFP to 5 different companies. KRT Appraisal, New England Municipal Consultants, Nemrick, Tyler Technologies, Vermont Appraisal Company. We've attached the rejection messages from Tyler Tech, Nemrick, and New England Municipal Consultants. We've got no response from KRT or Vermont Appraisal Company. We're not sure what our next step should be. Please advise. The answer to that from Jill from the state of Vermont. Thank you for letting us know. Sorry to hear this. Sounds like you're doing your due diligence and that this is all you can do. We'll be publishing the report with Bill Krajewski. Mentions this December, and hopefully that will settle the uncertainty that currently exists. Then on September 9th, Helen said, we received the attached 2024 reappraisal order reminder in the mail last week, and I'm not sure what my next step should be. Back in June, I sent you the message with a couple of attachments acknowledging our 2024 reappraisal order, and you responded. I've continued to work at finding someone who will do this job for us, but so far no one has shown any interest. I'll keep you posted, but I'm not sure what else I can do. Can you please send me a receipt acknowledging that we've responded to the 2024 reappraisal order for our files? And her answer the next day on September 10th was, sorry about this, apologies, you are on our list of stragglers, no further action is needed. At Bean Camden, please save these items and emails in Townsend's file. So that was the conversation about the reappraisal.
Any discussion?
Any questions? Helen is on Zoom if you have any questions for Helen.
Essentially, she notified the state of Vermont that we have put out RFPs and received rejections or no reply, and that we heard back that we're doing our due diligence, and we have now for the files her response acknowledging that we're doing our due diligence.
Helen, I'm just wondering when the deadline for the reappraisal is, just to have an idea of the timeline.
When the deadline,
Yes.
after we get the notice, we've got 180 days to give them an what they call an RA 308, which details our plan for the reappraisal. Since we cannot find anyone to do it, there is no timeline. We're just waiting to hear till the legislature does something or the state does, or we find somebody.
Is there, this is Ally, is there a fine if we don't do a reappraisal?
Not as long as we are doing everything we can to get it. I don't know what the penalty is for not doing one if you can, but since we're unable to do one now, I don't.
Yeah, no, I think you have done your due diligence, but no further action is needed, to me, isn't quite strong enough a response from the state to hold us blameless, really. I mean, they're commiserating with us and realizing that we've done everything, but I'd almost like a little bit.
I think that's pretty much all we can get.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Sure. Okay, then we are on to Susan Hunt.
So we received a letter from Susan Hunt on September 8th. She lives at 1895 Grafton Road. Dear Townshend Selectboard, I am writing to inquire what steps would need to be taken to get road signs in Simpsonville, approximately from Mike Bill's Bridge to East Hill Road. That reads densely populated, speed limit 35 miles per hour, or at the very least to have more signage in that area going in both directions that remind drivers of the 40 mile per hour speed limit already in place. Cars, motorcycles, and very large trucks go speeding by regularly at 50 and 60 miles an hour, and it has become very dangerous to live in such proximity to this mighty highway we have here. The houses in this stretch were built very close to the road back in the days when horses and buggies were the mode of transportation. The sound these days of passing cars, motorcycles, trucks, and even semis often rattles my bones and windows. I feel endangered just getting my mail. In addition, this is an area where there are many pedestrians, kids out riding bikes, people walking dogs, as well as animals from squirrels to foxes to even bears often sauntering across the road. There are residents with slow-moving agricultural equipment, often in the road as well. It is truly a public safety issue and something really has to be done. This stretch of Route 35 is a dangerous road with no sidewalks, no road shoulders, no guardrails at the bridge, and with sharp blind corners at both ends of the stretch. Cars and trucks tend to speed up once past the curve just past Deer Ridge and gun it up through the straightaway. The curve at Joyce's house just before East Hill Road is particularly dangerous not only for walkers and bikers, but for anyone coming around the corner in a car from the other direction. Speeding cars take that curve often, even crossing the yellow line at dangerous and reckless speeds. Things have become quite out of control. Perhaps the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit in town, which ends at Dorman's Garage, could simply extend up to the Grafton turn, or signs for 35 or 40 miles per hour could be added at Deer Ridge Road through the Grafton turnoff. 23 VSA 1007 provides you with that authority. Certainly more police oversight of this stretch of road would be helpful. The 40-mile-per-hour speed limit, if enforced, would be fine, but people speed with impunity along this road. Much of the traffic consists of people going to and from work, so even just a few weeks of police presence and ticketing could help to re-educate drivers and bring about the much-needed change. Sincerely yours, Susan Hunt.
Thank you. Discussion?
I know the area she's talking about, and I can concur and say, yes, this is very, very, very bad situation there with cars flying down that straightaway.
And having said that, it's a perfect segue to saying that on Zoom is Mark Anderson, who is going to talk to us about police protection and some ideas that he and I have spoken. So that will address some of this. And it's not only this. I mean, just look at the corner here, 30 miles an hour through town, and how you take your life in your hands. So we have a need for some deep thought on how to deal with these. Oh, I'm sorry, Laura, I didn't see you.
I just wanted to mention that Susan says that they start speeding up by Deer Ridge. Oh no, they start speeding up way down by where
Grafton turn.
we're down by where just where the rise comes up, where Lucier's old house, Dick Lucier's house is. They start speeding up there, and they just go faster and faster and faster. We've had drag races outside our house. I mean, it's not just down there, and it's just crazy.
And I think it's all over the whole town. I mean, I live on Sawdust Alley, and people are like, everybody cuts through here to go to Townsend Acres, and they go at 50 miles an hour. So we have an issue all over town, and it's not just here, but this elicits it well. Jeremy?
And as someone who's out working in traffic every day, you can put out as many signs as you want, people still do not pay attention to them.
There's 26 signs from the bottom of Harmonyville Hill to the center of this common. Count them.
Yeah,
People
I for one.
You put too many signs up, and it's an unfortunate. The speed is an issue, yes, but 26 signs between Harmonyville and Townsend Common.
It's overkill.
More signs is just one less thing to pay attention to.
Right. One more thing for them to hit.
It's sad, but
Right.
So we need to put our heads together and figure out how to deal with this. And I personally don't think another sign is the right way. But we can talk about that, and we can talk to Mark Anderson about that when we get to that part of our meeting. Let's see, any further discussion on this? Okay, and then we'll move on to Kate reading the warrants. Do we have to make a motion first?
Kate does.
I make a motion that we approve the warrants on September 10th, 2024. In the order of payroll, in the amount of $13,235.04. Payroll taxes in the amount of $5,930.64. General fund in the amount of $13,377.70. Highway in the amount of $24,739.50. And highway equipment in the amount of $2,191.71. The total amount of warrants being $59,474.59.
Second,
Seconded?
discussion?
I have a question.
Yes.
The planning commission recently understood that Windham Regional billed us for work that they're doing with us on the town plan. We never saw that bill, so it involved us and our budget. Shouldn't that bill have come to us at some point? Because I understood it was paid.
We'd have to research that. I don't remember offhand. So what is it that you want us to research?
Can I ask a question? Why would that come to you if the select board agreed you brought it to the select board to hire them. We entered into a contract with them, because I remember this, Ally signed the contract. If we have a contract, why wouldn't the bill come to Elaine and get paid, because it's already been approved?
How does Elaine know that the work was done?
Oh, no, but the bill came in, and she pays invoices.
My point is, how do we, making out checks, know that that work was actually done?
Well, wouldn't that be the nature of the contract as to when
No.
the bill? Well, so for instance, at the Stone Arch Bridge, they don't get paid until the work has been verified, because that was part of the contract. I'm not sure that was part of the Windham Regional contract. I think you pay up front for services.
My point is that Townsend got a bill for work that Windham Regional did for the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission never saw that bill. We should have checked off that, yes, in fact, that work was done and completed before that bill got paid.
So when the Stone Arch Bridge was approaching the beginning of their project, we sat down with the Townsend Historical
Yeah,
Society.
this is the Planning
Well, let me-
Commission.
Yeah, but we're giving you a.
Can you just let me finish? We sat down and talked about the process by which these two entities were going to work to verify the work before it gets paid. So I would suggest that the Planning Commission do the same thing with the town, which is before the project starts or before a bill is paid, the contract has been signed. But if you're concerned about how the procedure was gonna go, then the Planning Commission should sit down with the town and say, okay, let's figure out how we're gonna work this out. There was no discussion about that. A contract has been signed, a bill was received, and so it was paid.
This is as basic as accounting gets.
Or it's your involvement.
We should be signing off on
Or
that
being
before it gets
proactive,
paid.
Bob.
That's basic accounting. And that tells me that we have trouble here if that's the way bills are getting paid.
Or we have trouble with communication from the Planning Commission, who didn't take a proactive position. It's your project, and you're viewing
Connie, I'm
it.
sorry about that.
No, it is. You have a role in this, Bob.
It's basic accounting.
You have a role in working with the town about your project and not sitting passively. That's the concern that I would have.
That bill should have come to us and we should have said to Elaine, yes, that work was completed, please pay the bill. That's the way basic accounting is done.
Any further discussion on that? So, are we going to approve these warrants?
A second?
Yeah, we had a second. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And
Did everybody vote?
And then we are going to go on to the highway report, Jeremy.
Yes, first I'll start off with our December 23 FEMA event. Connie and I finished completing the forms and everything's been submitted. Total bill for that event was about $23,000. We'll be on the hook for 25% of that. So we will see 17 and some change back from the government. They were pretty good about the last one, so we should see that fairly quickly, some months I would assume. So, Stone Arch Bridge, I was up there the other day, it's coming along very nicely. They're setting all their the big blocks that they're gonna anchor the railing posts to. They are a little behind because Brian's run into some staffing issues and some illness issues. He had a week where he had no crew members because Al had COVID a couple weeks ago. They will be out, the scaffolding will be out of the water by the October 1st deadline. They may be a week or so behind on actually opening the bridge, but they're coming along really nicely. It's looking great. It's awesome. This work's impressive. So I don't know if anybody's had a chance to get up there, but there's one other issue that I did.
Let me ask you a question. So they're saying that they might be a week behind schedule opening the bridge? for driving over? Is that-
Yeah,
And
he
then-
wasn't really sure. It's kind of one of those things. He's like, well, maybe I can get it open on evenings and mornings, you know, and close it during the day. And so it's kind of play it by ear here. So
My concern lies with, I remember a few weeks ago we discussed this and we said that we would reach out to Kara Kane and just give her an update on when the bridge would be open so her children can pass over in the morning. So maybe once we know that a little bit better, we could have Connie send her an email about that, just to keep her updated because she was concerned about that.
we have another benchmark on Monday, so I'll be up there on Monday, and we'll discuss it further.
So it doesn't have to be blacktop to be open?
Right. Correct.
What about pedestrians? I mean, could the kids walk across it?
Not at the present moment, but at some point it'll be safe for pedestrians. I mean, that's completely, you know, up to Ryan as to when that is, but
Yeah, he
as
has
far
to
as
open it up.
making it safe for people to walk over it.
And this is, like you said, just on the off hours when you're not working on it, those last week or two.
As Bob brought up, there was an accident last week involving a piece of equipment and a pedestrian vehicle. We have made a claim to the VLTC. There was no injuries, no harm, just the vehicle damage. Just a miscommunication between me and the guy, and she was in a blind spot where she couldn't have been seen, and stuff happens.
So tell me about this collision that happened, two vehicles ran into one another?
No. Yeah, I was in the excavator.
Okay.
The excavator was involved in
So we were doing what,
ditching work,
ditching? Okay,
grants and stuff,
Yeah.
ditching, stone line and stuff like that.
okay.
I got out of the way to let a car go by. 'Cause,
Do
like,
we have flaggers?
we don't, because, well, we don't have the money to flag for Bob, for one. And two, we're on a secondary road, so it's not really necessary. And like I said, there was a miscommunication with me and my other driver. There was supposed to be only one car coming through, and there ended up being two, and he didn't inform me. And before I could turn my head to notice, I swung the bucket into her vehicle. So, could have been way worse. Because I did see her at the last minute and was able to pull up, get the bucket up out, you know, and it kind of raised up over the side of the truck.
So did we have signs out?
There were signs out, yes there was.
And someone told you that there was one car coming?
Yeah.
So some of the crew was there?
The crew, yeah, because there was a truck in front of me, behind me.
Okay. Okay, there was miscommunication between our flagger,
Truck driver,
okay.
who was in the truck to stay on the brakes.
Have they been through the flagging program? The
I
MUTCD program?
don't know if he was a railroad employee, so I'm sure he's had some flagging experience, but.
Yeah, it's different though, but okay.
Isn't that the one in Manchester that we signed up for?
What's that?
No, that was Amsterdam. Did we ever get signed up? No, the flagging course is offered through VLR,
Okay.
so,
We put them on at the firehouse, like every 2 years, we recertified. So the members of the fire department are in the flag course. But if he's in the truck, he's not out on the road flagging. It's a totally different animal that you're trying to think of versus what probably happened.
Yeah, flagging, a situation like that is really important. I mean, you're doing your work and you really need to know if there's any traffic coming.
Correct.
For sure, okay,
there was a breakdown in communication. basically,
Okay.
what happened.
okay.
So, she's fine, you know, we made her reports. I talked to her a couple of times since, and she's, you know.
Okay.
Anything else, Jeremy?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions? Anybody have any questions?
I mean, I guess I'm just wondering what can be done, or like what can be improved in the future to avoid situations like that.
Like Bob said, a flagging crew, who has money in their budget for that?
Well, you know, we're budget season.
Well, I mean, you said that you were communicating with the person in the truck, you had radios or something,
Correct.
right? So how could he not tell you that there are two cars?
Because he's new to it.
He didn't.
He's our newest employee, he's still training. It was a miscommunication, you know. ultimately, it was my fault for not explaining what needs to be done.
Well, that's very
I mean, if anybody wants to volunteer to come flag for me during the week, have at it. I'll send you guys to the training classes. I mean, we're doing the best we can.
Yeah.
You know,
For sure.
shit happens.
And
Basically, is what it boils down to.
mistakes happen.
It's just trying to think through how do we like move forward.
In a perfect world, I would have a flag included with me every day. Now, who can afford that? You know, I don't have enough guys on my crew to do multiple projects, you know, to make it worthwhile to get stuff done. That's just that's what it boils down to. If you want to give me a 6-man crew, then yeah, maybe I could put flag crews on every. But who has money in the budget for that?
But it sounded like you kind of had it under control, except for the fact that the person.
It was a breakdown in communication for the moment.
Yeah.
And again, that's part of what the flagging covers, is to make sure that you got everything covered so that there is no miscommunication. You know, it's one vehicle or two vehicles, so.
The issue has been solved. We've had a meeting.
Yeah.
We've discussed it.
Okay.
That's the issue.
The class of road dictates on what you do for that, right? That
And
class
we're on a dirt road.
the miles an hour, yeah.
The class of the road will
Yeah,
dictate
it's
what
all part of
your
that.
responsibilities
It's all
are
part
for
of
the
that.
state. So
Yep, that's right.
if he's on that road, he's most likely not even required to have a flag, and you're on a 6-man crew to pay him another $68,000 a year to flag on a road that doesn't really need it. It's just
Like I said, you can put out all the signs in the world, Bob. People do not fucking listen to them. Sorry for that language.
Yep.
It's just been a rough couple of weeks.
Yep.
Shall we move this along to the treasurer's report?
Can I ask one question? Sorry.
Sure.
While we're on the highway, I was just a couple quick things. I wasn't, so we don't have any final tallies in pavement, so we really not sure if the special projects on 35 most likely aren't gonna happen this year. There's 2 sections of pavement.
I did. So our paving budget, some of it's eaten up by the storage bridge.
Yeah.
And what I have left, I can do the little section from,
Highway garage, it's Charlotte.
That-
yeah.
I was hoping to do the other section, but that's a lot of money. So
Is it in the thought of
it's,
the select board and the town highway? I mean, I drive that road 6-8 times a day. My truck
my
takes
hope is to
a
put money in the budget for next year.
I guess
I do have a $50,000 grant for next year for paving, which will help, but
I'm just curious.
yes, that I'm completely aware.
It'll help the people speeding
Yeah.
faster.
Yep.
And then the last thing I was gonna ask is, because I've been going up that way, is the pavement edges on Windham Hill. You guys gonna throw some?
We're opening bids tonight, the
Alright.
repairs.
Yeah. So was that, I spent a lot of money to put on that hill?
The issue with, I had pre-bid meeting on Friday for that section on 35, I had one contractor show up, at 10 invitations?
Yeah.
And I had 2 show up for the other thing, so
No, it's stuff.
it's,
I was just curious. Thank you.
Treasurer's report. General fund checking the balances before the warrants tonight, $1,808,855.29, and then the sweep account is $30,000. The town is still posting tax payments. The town is still waiting for the FY 2025 Act 68 cash flow from the municipality from the state of Vermont. Town can't make a school payment until the cash flow paperwork is received. Reminder to the select board, when you want to be paid your yearly stipend, please submit it in writing. Make sure that we have your request to process it, and that you have a W-2 form and or ARC payment is completely filled out, including your social security. Any questions, folks? We'll move on to the town clerk's fees that she's received for the 2 weeks from August 16th till the end of August for $1,334.50. And then we move on to the chair report. VLCT is having a budget webinar. Connie will go, and anyone else that would like to sign up. The paperwork is here. It's Wednesday the 18th from 10 to 11:30. So just let Connie know if you board members would like to go.
This is not virtual, this is a.
I believe it's attendance, correct? It's not
It's a
virtual.
webinar.
Oh, it's a
Yeah,
webinar?
it's a webinar.
Okay. So, then the next one is Rescue Inc., Town Consortium. It's a Sunday. I was going to suggest that Kate Jancic attend since you are our rescue research person. And anybody else that would like to attend, if it's more than 3 people, we should probably know so we can post something. Then C on the agenda is Select Board 6-month check-in. We had said that we would check in just to see, come back next meeting on the 24th. How is it going for you? Are you feeling comfortable with the way the board's working, getting along together? Are there places that you feel you need more information/knowledge training or whatever, or how we can better collaborate together? So this is just kind of a heads up that next meeting, let's talk about that. Then we have a Grace Cottage Hospital mowing update. Would you like to do that, Kate, since you were at that meeting?
Yes, this concerned the swale, a section that is, the pipes pass underneath it and it hasn't been mowed, and there were sumac trees growing up. So it has been mowed, but the meeting was about, with the CEO of the hospital and other people at the hospital, the meeting was about whose responsibility will it be moving forward to make sure that the swale is mowed so that the septic field integrity is maintained. And we were hoping to get the hospital to acknowledge that they would henceforth continue to mow that swale. They believe that it's the responsibility of the elementary school. We had no way to resolve the disagreement since we didn't have any representatives from the elementary school there. However, one of the board members, the elementary school, the board members for the, what is the
Foundation.
foundation, but
The W-Red.
W-Red, that's it, is also on the board at the hospital. And so they're going to ask, essentially the hospital is going to take it up with the elementary school through people that are on the board at the elementary school. And we kind of stepped back and pointed out that we didn't really have a dog in the fight, since it was in their best interest to maintain that swale, to maintain the septic system. And they said that they would get in touch with the elementary school representatives and would update the town, the select board accordingly when they had an answer.
And just to add a little bit to that, the 2 meetings that we've had were 2 very different meetings. The first one was, it's in our best interest, we'll be right over to mow it. And they did, and they did a beautiful job. The second meeting, they called, and I just incorrectly assumed it was to say, didn't we do a good job and we'll do it going forward? Well, that was not what we walked into a whole room of people, including like the head of this and everything else. And so it was a very different feeling meeting. What I have done is I've asked Connie, since Connie was out sick, to write to the hospital and say, I couldn't make that meeting, could you send me a summary of it? So we have something in writing about what their thoughts are going forward. And I guess we'll just revisit this because, as I said, it wasn't as friendly the second time as it was the first time. Any further discussion about that? Okay, action items. Connie, do you want to talk on the action items since you're the creator of our wonderful action item list?
So after the select board meetings, I generally put together action items that are coming out of the select board meeting and send it off to the select board members and to Jeremy. Ally, as the select board chair, this time around, raised that it's very helpful to get the action items, but if there's no discussion about them, then we don't really know if anybody's acted on the action items. So she has, I don't want to put words in Ally's mouth.
I'll tell you if you're wrong.
But she has said that she would like, on a regular basis, to have a discussion about any follow-up on the action items to help move issues to conclusion rather
And put them to bed.
and put them to bed. So I think unless there's an objection, Ally intends to put action items in every 2 weeks in the chair's report to see how we're doing on, unless the board does not think that that's a good idea.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Okay, shall we read through these, or how do you think we should?
So my suggestion is Jeremy has a list of the action items that pertain to him, and I think this could eat up the whole meeting agenda. I think it really should be just quick updates, and if people don't have an update, totally okay.
It just stays on.
It just stays on.
Okay.
So for instance, the first one is a sign for the garage announcing that the free tires will be made, and it was supposed to be done by Jeremy or me. I can say I have not done anything on that. So that's,
And you had COVID, so.
so that has not been acted on.
And reach out to the forest for the pit trees, forester.
He's already contacted the forester. Most the two local loggers that I've talked to said they will provide a forester, but that only if they are promised to work, they will provide the forester. So it's kind of one of those things.
I reached out to the Windham County forester. His name is Sam something or other. Shishnecki, very nice man. The problem is he's out west till the 3rd week of September on firefighting. So when he gets back, I assume that he'll reach back out to us.
So I'm unsure, do you think I should keep reading these or just?
I think so.
Okay.
Or just pointing to which one.
Okay. Jeremy is talking to Hunter about the cost of stumping after logging the town pit. Is that putting the cart before the horse and we should wait? Or have you talked to Hunter?
Hunter's, I've had a few calls into him. He's supposed to be doing a project for us, so-called a FEMA project for us. That's supposed to be done by the end of the month. I called him today, I haven't heard back from him. I know everybody's super busy this time of year. So.
Okay. Then number 4, I think we'll move past because it was Send United and Colin Nystrom estimates to assess Old Grader. We're gonna talk about that in a moment.
Well, I don't think there's anything, oh, you're right, it's on.
No, she can look past that.
It's on the
Jeremy
order.
will supply Unibid information to Connie.
I have not received that.
Not yet, okay. On Thursday at 2 p.m., Jeremy and Katie met with Betty, okay?
That
To
happened.
go over job description, that happened.
Yeah.
Connie will get the financial update on the Stone Arch Bridge, we have that.
Well, I haven't given that out yet. So I should quickly just give that, right? As an action item, here's the Stone Arch. You all had directed me.
Take one and pass it on.
Fundamentally, this relates to the issue of how are we going to pay the cost of the guardrails. And we know that there was a $50,000 special article in town meeting to the Stone Arch Bridge project. So I was directed to find out how the project is doing, and do we expect that there'll be any money left over in that $50,000 special article that we could use towards the Stone Arch Bridge guardrails. So what you have in front of you is the treasurer's most update. It's not a final report, but it's the most update analysis of how the project funding is going, and it's going well. And the assumption is if there is no glitches, which there could be, but if there are no glitches, there's an expectation that there'll be a balance of $27,319 left that could be used for the guardrails. So, that's good news, and so we'll move along, assuming that we're going to have at least minimally, hopefully 25,000 to 27,000 to put towards the cost.
Okay. Any questions about that? The allocation of the economic recovery funds, that's on our agenda,
It's on
isn't
the
it?
agenda.
So we'll pass over that one. Fire pond,
I am wondering if, discussing the allocation or trying to vote on it is too soon, if the other part of that, of number 8, where other, IT companies were researched, if we haven't made a decision on that.
I think we can still go forward,
Okay, just saying.
but when we get to that article,
I'm just saying we don't have to talk about it in this section.
Yeah.
Fire pond funds, Connie will clarify with Elaine where the fire pond funds are located. Connie will then coordinate with Sherwood where the funds should be.
so if you all remember, this came out of the conversation that Glenn brought and Brian brought to last select board meeting, which is there is grant money that goes into a fire pond fund, and that fund no longer exists. And so there was a little concern about where's the money. And so I was directed to talk to Elaine. What Elaine has said is that she and Sherwood discussed it, I think it was last year, going into this year's budget. He requested that the money be rolled over, and it was rolled into a fire department fund. So it used to be a separate fire pond fund. It's no longer a separate fire pond fund. It's rolled into a fire department CD. So the money still exists, and if the fire department has a concern, they can talk to Elaine about it. But it is there. It's just in a CD, not a separate reserve fund.
Okay, then the next one, I'm just looking at Bartlett's on here. The next one is our town select board projects that we've made ourselves willing to do. Sherwood's not here to report on the cybersecurity policy.
I think that's also under old business, addressed later. in the-
Okay, so we can address that later, and the same with Bartlett's, right? So let's move on. And I think that means that this is where we're allowing Bob to speak.
So at the town meeting, we had a $50,000 grant to make the front of the building accessible and to also make an ADA compliant bathroom. We have an architect who's willing to draw the plans up. This is something that requires a lot of real detail because we need diagrams, plans, sketches, as well as specifications for the material to do all this. So the architect will do it for $5,800, and then at that point, we'll, similar to what we did with the fire doors, put this in a bid package, put it out to the contractor community, and see who is willing to do it for what cost. And it will be a closed bid, which I'm assuming the select board would like to see. Or at least that's the way we probably should do it.
Well, I think we are in charge of the money, even though it was granted for those
Correct,
uses.
Correct.
I have a question. If we're gonna put out the work to bid, why aren't we putting this $5,800 out to bid?
The architect, actually, at the planning commission, there was one of our members who thought it was irresponsible to pay an architect $5,800 to put this bid package together. And I, of course, said that it was irresponsible to wait 35 years to do this, and of course there was lots of money back in the early 2000s to do this kind of work, so it's irresponsible that we waited 35 years, but that's besides the point.
We're here now.
We're here now. So what we did was we went to 2 other architects to see whether or not they would be willing to do this and how much they would charge. One of them came back and gave us a very nice write-up and his cost was somewhere in the neighborhood of about $25,000. The other architect didn't provide anything, so we don't know anything more than that. But this is the architect that started with us back in 2007. It's an architect firm that's familiar with historic buildings, very familiar with this building. He was the apprentice, if you will, to Mark Wesner, who did the original report on this building. He's the one that gave us the update 3 years ago. So Jeff Metcalf knows this building inside out and backwards, essentially.
And why is it gonna cost us $5,800 if he already has all the knowledge about the building?
For the reasons I just explained.
To get the detail.
Putting a bid package together, plans. If you've ever seen what it costs to put all this stuff together, we're talking diagrams, we're talking, this is the kind of ramp material that you need to use, these are the handrails that you need to use, this is the amount of weight that's required to withstand. So these are not things that I've got the knowledge to do. And
Can you present this board with the old plans and then we can make a decision?
what
Like what plans did he have 3 years ago?
Okay, so everyone got copies of that. That's the updated plans for the entire building, not just for the front doors and the ADA bathroom. So that's the updated plans for completely renovating Town Hall.
Still would like to see them. I for one person feel like we're paying for something we've already paid for, you know. And I feel like it wasn't really put out to bid so that other people could have bid on it. But,
Is this $5,800 coming out of the article?
Yes, that would be my way of, I thought, paying for it, yep.
Yeah, and then, are you feeling like the rest, the 44,000 or so that'll be left is gonna be enough to do the renovations that
Yes.
are needed for the bathroom? And
There's a degree of complexity to this. Because we're not doing everything at the same time, the ADA compliant bathroom is gonna be in an area that when the complete building renovation gets done, is gonna get taken out. So the architect has said to me, Bob, this is gonna be as simple and basic as we can make it. Because you don't wanna spend a whole lot of money on something that's gonna be torn out when you do the complete renovation.
didn't John come and talk to us about this last year? About taking the bathroom and turning it into, I think
It's gonna be a unisex. So
Yeah.
the town hall will have 2 unisex bathrooms, one of which is ADA compliant.
yes, I remember that.
I thought he said it was only gonna cost like $500.
I thought we had,
well,
at the time.
I
We
didn't,
definitely
that
discussed
wasn't in
it.
my time.
No, it wasn't, but
Yeah.
we discussed it last year. John had a plan. It seemed affordable, and I had been wondering if it was moving forward or not, but it looks like you guys put this article in so that you could do it, so I guess that's a moot point. Okay.
So that was dropped, that plan?
Well, I for one think there might be more simplistic ways to go about it, especially since it's a stopgap measure until we do the whole ADA compliance. Why renovate a bathroom that's gonna be obliterated when we could change a doorway or, you know.
I think, because we do have deferred maintenance on this ADA compliance overall, that any part of the building that we can make ADA
I think we
compliant
could make
with
it
reasonable
without this,
funds,
though.
we probably should, because we are not compliant overall. So I actually have no objection to them doing that in the short term to get something off of that very long list of non-compliance.
Yeah.
So you're saying that the $50,000 totally going towards a bathroom?
A bathroom and a ramp.
The article was voted in. Article 14,
Yep.
to see if the town will vote to raise $50,000 by taxation to be held in a reserve account for the repair/renovation of Town Hall. This includes prompt compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act for building accessibility and an ADA compliant bathroom. So, yes, the town voted it in.
And bathroom, not just a
You
bathroom.
have to get them into the building. Right
Yeah.
now, it's not compliant to get a ADA person into the front of the town hall,
Correct.
which is
Because
part
even with the ramp, there's not a push button to open the
So-
door
so
for the ramp.
The article was warned as doing that in conjunction with being able to get an ADA person into the actual building, then having a place for them to use a bathroom.
And I agree with the ramp myself, but I don't agree with the bathroom. I think we could,
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not. You're trying to be compliant with the bathroom, which you haven't been for years. And while it seems like you're wasting money, you're into it. I'm just gonna throw a number. You're probably into a $20,000 bathroom
We're hoping 6 or 7.
versus
That's what we're hoping.
versus $1 million and change, Abby, versus $1 million and change building renovation. So, although it seems like you're wasting money, you're also becoming compliant. And it's, as a taxpayer, I'm telling you right now, I'm not willing to put $1 million or $2 million into this building. Not right now, not with the uncertain thing going on, the cost of everything. So it seems like it's a waste, but in theory, it's giving you an opportunity to get ADA people into the building, be compliant, and then get your game plan down the road figured out and ironed out for the whole renovation of this building, if it's in fact going to happen with the townsfolks.
So, just to be clear, the 50,000 isn't just for the bathroom, it's for the ramp and the access doors as well, right? Is that what I'm getting from
Hopefully
this?
it's gonna be nowhere close to $50,000. We're talking about a ramp, door openers, and an ADA
Okay,
compliant
all
bathroom.
right, now I got it.
And it does say in the language that's reserve fund, so it sounds like
Right.
you're putting this money aside knowing that these are expenses that we have. Do whatever that we can do for the ramp, the bathroom, and take it from there. That's what my understanding is.
I just thought it was just for the bathroom, that's what was blowing my mind. I'm just like, yeah, gotcha.
how, once we get a handicapped person in here, are they going to get into the town clerk's office?
I was here election day 2 years ago, and after I voted, I was going out the front doors, and there was a gentleman with a walker stuck. He couldn't get out. So, you know, we're ambulatory. People who are not ambulatory have different things that they have to deal with. And
How's that answering my question? How is what we're gonna spend $50,000 on gonna get somebody into the town clerk's office, even if there's a ramp and a button maybe to open the door?
Go to that door, she can bring stuff to them.
right,
Yeah, but that's not equal rights, and that's what the ADA is all about.
Well, I think that's what Warren was saying, though. He was saying that the larger project is the larger project, but the article states what the article states, and we need to allow that, because we're not renegotiating that. That was voted in. And if it's part of our very long list of compliance, then we should take those things off the list.
And yeah, is it possible to add
And we
in
have to, 'cause some-
ADA access to the town clerk's office at the same time with this other building access and bathrooms?
You walk in the town clerk's office, how high is the countertop? It's at your chest, okay? So if you're gonna put them in the front door, you're gonna have to address the countertop, be compliant.
It's like a domino effect.
And then you don't have enough room for them to turn around inside the town clerk's office.
Correct.
You're trying to get the ADA bathroom installed, and maybe there's a procedure where the door to the town clerk either has a ring button or something that she can come out and address. It's not. It's you start down the road. That's the renovation piece that is going to get rather expensive.
Yeah.
So, but you are starting on compliance.
so I mentioned we had another architect, or actually 2 other architects look at this. One of the other architects that gave us in great detail how much it would cost. said that he was recently working on another town who had a Department of Justice complaint filed, and now suddenly that town, everything was opened up. That building had to be completely ADA compliant. We're just trying to get people in the front door and have an ADA bathroom for them. If someone made a complaint, open up the floodgates in terms of how expensive this would be.
I raised this question to you at town meeting, correct? Did I not ask you on the floor? Are you opening Pandora's box? Have you asked the state by being compliant in this one area, if it's going to snowball you anywhere else?
Pandora's box would open up if someone filed a complaint. That's when Pandora's box would open up. Making the building accessible and an ADA bathroom is not gonna make everything suddenly open up. It won't do that.
Unless they can't get the town clerk and they want to file a
Well,
complaint.
maybe we could-
I'm just saying, it's things to be having in the back of your mind. Yes, I'm just stating.
But maybe we could put a buzzer at the door, a doorbell or something.
We're sidetracking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other man that came, from the person you haven't gotten, what about if you asked them to come back with something? Because I met with him just by accident when he was here, and he was very knowledgeable. This is from Cotton and Associates,
Cotton gave us nothing.
but we can ask them for something.
You wanna kick the can down the road again some more? Okay.
All right, so why don't we table
How about
this
taking a
until,
vote?
why don't we table this until next week when we get the next meeting? I mean, it's an idea that we can.
What were you saying to vote about? Did you want to vote?
Well,
Did you need a vote tonight?
The planning commission needs a little bit of direction, a little bit of guidance. We're trying to move this forward, and we don't want to kick the can down again. It's been 35 years that this law has been around. And as I mentioned, if someone filed a complaint, it would get expensive immediately.
We heard you say that. So what do you want from us for tonight?
What I'd like the planning commission to do is give the select board a little bit of direction about how to get these bills paid. You want us to move forward with this, with the architect, and move forward with getting contractors to bid on this? What exactly would you like to do?
I mean, as far as this select board member is concerned, I don't feel you have the right to spend the money without asking us, even though it was earmarked for that in the article, because we are the people who expend money.
Seems to me that, okay. The article was voted on, the planning commission's working on it. They are informing us of their decision to work with this architect and how much he's gonna charge. I don't think it's necessary for them to ask formally in meetings for every bill to be paid. That doesn't make any sense. How are they ever gonna get the bathroom or any work completed if they have to ask in every single instance for approval from the select board? When Jeremy has a allocated amount for highway expenses, he doesn't have to ask for every single item. He informs us through the warrants of what was expended. So I guess I disagree with the
Okay,
idea.
we can disagree. How do we want to leave this tonight, folks? Should we make a motion and see how it fares? I don't know.
You did request, you made a request of the planning commission. I don't know if the select board wants to incorporate that, but you had requested that
Cotton and Associate be asked.
to be asked to submit something. So I don't know if that's to be acted upon before, or if the select board just wants to go ahead and move on.
Bob, are you saying that you had already reached out to that firm and they did not answer you? Did they come to look at anything?
Yes, they did.
John Evans reached out to Cotton, and Cotton didn't give him anything. I reached out to the architect that did the Grafton Town Hall. That architect came and presented a very, very detailed report, and again, to the tune of about $25,000 to do what we're asking this existing architect who's been in this building forever, who's looking to get $5,800 to put this bid package
Cotton
together.
did visit here, though.
I understand that.
Okay, well,
We
the
got
way you
nothing.
said it, it sounded like you talked to them, but they didn't come. But they did come,
Yes, that's what I understand.
yes.
I would just say it sounds like, according to our town procurement policy, that this is, proceeding according to the policy, and so this is a necessary step as the way you've laid it out in terms of how do we move forward towards actually getting bids, getting the work done.
Yes.
So, I personally am okay with it. I mean, you've done your due diligence with 3 different potentials. You've gotten 2 back. One of them is giving you the lowest and best price. So that's where I'm at with that.
What is the name of the firm?
Wesner,
This is the best.
Keith and Wednesday,
the,
Keith and Wednesday.
Keith and Wisner.
yes.
It's in the, it's in your packet.
Jeff Metcalf is the architect, the actual architect.
Okay, so, I'd like to make a motion to approve the planning commission's request to hire Keith and Wessner to create architectural plans for the ADA compliant bathroom.
And or RFP.
RFP.
So it's not
Well, okay, so
just, right,
thank you for pointing this out. The architect will be drawing up plans for an RFP. Thank you.
for Keith and Wessner to draw up architectural plans for an RFP for the ADA compliant bathroom in an amount not to exceed $5,800.
Seconded.
and not to exceed 5,800.
Correct.
We'll have a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I'm gonna do a post on that one.
So it's,
3 to 1.
3,
1. So, okay, we'll move along.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay. Where is, okay, our sheriff is, board. Our sheriff has been waiting patiently. Shall we let him go ahead since we've taken a break in the action? So we need a motion and a second and all that good stuff.
I make a motion that we move the Windham County Sheriff Anderson report from new business up to now after the planning commission before old business.
Okay, second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
The ayes have it. Okay, Sheriff Anderson, Mark, is it?
It is.
Hello, how are you?
I think I spoke over you. Good evening.
Good evening. You saw Connie and I at your little soiree you had down there over the summer, and then you spoke with me, Ally Evans, on the phone regarding the future of our town and police protection and speeding, etc., and whatever you can do for us. So would you like to recap what you and I spoke about?
I will do my best to remember that conversation because I've had so many conversations about policing in the last 6 months that they are blurring together. Madam Chair, if you want to redirect me anytime, I'm happy to. In short, my understanding is the town of Townsend doesn't currently have any contract policing services nor police department. My department used to contract with the town of Townsend, variety of reasons why we don't. That's fine. That's why we do contracts. The model that we currently operate is a contract model where we charge a fee for service. We provide services that's negotiated with the select board. In addition to policing, we have a separate service we provide, which is animal control. And so that is somewhat of a pilot of the direction I'm trying to guide the department. The current contract model is a model we understand. We know how it works, and I call it a 60% solution. The problem is that it is very much like a contract, and it doesn't necessarily structure to how we want public services to be rendered. When you call for an ambulance, you want the ambulance to show up. When you call for a police officer, you want a police officer to show up. So fairly straightforward in that context, but usually because of the constraints of funding, constraints of my department, then it becomes a question of how do we provide the services in a cost-effective way that meets your budget. The model I'm trying to move to basically says we work better as neighbors if we share services. And so trying to pivot that model, the animal control program, our regional animal control program, currently has 10-member towns that shares an animal control officer to help with those things. Ultimately, either through a pilot project with the legislature or even just through the contract model, which I'm not a fan of, but we could make it work. We're looking to pivot the policing model to be more of a shared resource that responds to multiple towns and supports everyone's needs across a larger period of time.
So you gave, for instance, the successful partnering of Westminster and Putney. And then you said one was starting in Jamaica and Londonderry. And I brought up the fact of what does Newfane and Brookline pay, and maybe we could partner with them because we're such a close locality. And you were gonna think on that because you didn't have any records in front of you when we discussed it.
And I have them in front of me now. We are the Regional Animal Control Program served as our basis for intermunicipal relationships with my department that shares the service. We also have on the policing side, we're now running 2 pilots. One is in Putney, Westminster. The town of Putney pays for a 40-hour-a-week position. The town of Westminster pays for a 40-hour-a-week position. So rather than have 2 deputies in the those 2 separate towns for 40 hours each, what the 2 towns have agreed to is that we share that 1 deputy across an 80-hour period in both towns. So if a call occurs in Putney, but the deputy's in Westminster, they just cross the line. Under the contract model of what has been around for 40 years or more, it was very much, well, I owe the town of Townsend or town of Newfane or whomever I'm contracting with this many hours. And if the call doesn't come, it doesn't come. But if it came in Newfane, well, I'm still obligated to provide the town of Townsend's service. So it would get referred to the state police if it wasn't like a crisis emergency, which we would just sort that out later. So it's worked very well in Putney, Westminster. There was a brief hiccup with a misunderstanding in the contract in Westminster. So there was a hiccup for 1 year. We've since returned back to the original model, which everyone seems to like. The town of Jamaica and Londonderry, they split, they each contribute about 20 hours a week and share 1 deputy. So for the same, basically the same resource sharing, we split the 20 hours between each town. We find that key to the success in this is 1, geographically located. So towns like Jamaica, Newfane, Athens, Brookline, Wardsboro, they make sense to the town of Townsend geographically. And then the other is equal resources. And so what I mean by that, or I should say funding. What we're looking for is that we have, whether it's 20 hours, 40 hours, whatever that number were, that the towns who partner into this share the same amount of cost towards that position or positions.
What would you suggest for us?
You know, I am a firm believer that Windham County is absolutely lacking in police coverage. I think that there should be 24/7 police coverage throughout the county. I'm not the decider of that because the reality is that would require legislation that would either enable the county to fund policing for the county through the sheriff's office or empower resource, do the things with the state police for them to provide it. But whatever the case may be, the policymakers in Montpelier have not yet negotiated that path. What the town of Townsend needs, I think the select board is really in the best position to be able to make the decision. I firmly support 24-hour coverage for all towns in Windham County because you just don't know when the problem's going to be. I recognize, and I know that you all recognize, that's expensive. With the regional model that we're trying to roll out, what that would do, if we were able to do it through what I believe I'll be advocating for, but we're working with stakeholders to make sure that the people, the towns support that. Raising enough funding for 24/7 coverage for Townsend would cost, I like to say, roughly the cost of a Netflix membership per household. It's roughly about $300 per household. I understand everybody just got their tax bills, and to hear some number like that is also one of those things that causes a cringe. However, if we were to raise the same amount of money on the county tax, which we're not allowed to do by law, as it's currently written, it would cost about $10 per $100,000 of value, or $20 for a $200,000 household. So it seems to make sense that we leverage the county tax to do this. There's a Supreme Court case back from the 60s or 70s called Stowe v. Lamoille that specifically excludes the county from doing this, which is why we do the contract model, which then means it's more expensive to do it because we're raising it on a smaller base.
So if we were to join with Newfane, we haven't talked to Newfane about this, but they're our geographical mirror almost. And we each had 40 hours per 2-week period. What would that cost about? Just so we can start thinking about money.
Yeah, just to illustrate, let's see. Putney is paying about $108,000 a year for 40 hours a week. Londonderry is paying about $60,000 per week. I'm sorry, not per week, per year. Jamaica's paying a little bit more, but they ask us to do some extra things that are somewhat extraneous to the contract. We support like Old Home Days, and we come out for special events that they know that they're going to have. Westminster, they're paying $120,000 right now, which again, they have some extraneous events that we provide support for. But generally speaking, we contract at the 40 hours, 20 hours. If it were 10 hours, so be it. What it helps me do is allocate the resources of the personnel, the training that's required for them to maintain their certification, vehicle radios, all the things that go into providing it. That's why we're looking for the equal portion. I'm not sure I'd be comfortable going below a 40-hour position in this model. We haven't tested that yet in any other way than how we currently service contracts, which we've already identified is difficult to manage multiple towns with varying levels without any sense of the call volume. Population of Townsend, I mean, not to talk about the grand list, but the population of Townsend, I think that somewhere between 20 and 40 hours a week would make sense. But again, I take no offense if the board were to say, that's going to cost this much money, we can't afford that, we have to pay for a bathroom, we have to pay for road salt, we have stormwater permitting. Like, I get it. We're all in this same problem together, and the world's just gotten really expensive.
But as you heard just from one of our correspondents, we have a big speeding problem, and we need to deal with that too. Yes.
Yeah.
That has been a theme across the county.
Yeah.
I just have a question. I didn't hear what Newfane and Brookline do. Have they partnered up as a town, or?
Yeah.
They have not. So we currently only contract with the town of Newfane for law enforcement services. And I believe we are contracting for $30,000 a year.
And what does that get then?
That is roughly. I'm gonna have to do.
So that's the old model that you were saying isn't as good, where they get like 6 hours a week or something.
Yeah, that would break down to 468 hours a year or 9 hours a week.
Okay. And it's not always the right 9 hours that you need for.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is the problem comes when it comes. My crystal ball is as good as or as broken as everyone else's. So out of 168 hours in a week, we're there 9 of them. The odds are we're going to miss it. And that creates frustration. And really, this problem we're trying to solve is resource allocation and being efficient.
If we wanted to start a discussion with Newfane about your services, would that be something you would be involved in, or would we do that and then discuss it with you?
Probably the second one. I think it would make sense two towns, Guilford and Vernon, at one point, they approached each other just to say they wanted to have that conversation, and ultimately the towns disagreed in approach. Right, wrong, and different. Not here to say it, but you understand your relationship with the towns around you better than I do, and so you can't come to mutual agreement with any of your neighboring towns or the geographically located towns. I don't think it makes sense to start negotiating what the intermunicipal arrangement would be. My part's easy. We basically just say we want to make things equal, and we want to provide the services to the town in the way that you feel is appropriate to your community and in a way that can be afforded by your taxpayers.
Okay, so we would start a conversation. You had said at one point that we could join in with Jamaica and Londonderry, and I had questioned if they were too far away to, I didn't want to be the stepchild that was out of the loop.
Yeah, so I don't think that they'd be too far away. They are contiguous. Certainly, if there's a call in Londonderry and then there's a call in Townshend, there's going to be more time. And so I think that's a consideration to be had as part of it. It would not be my first choice, but given that it's an existing choice, it does make sense. I do think it makes sense to work with Newfane. Athens and Brookline, I think, are a little more constrained in what they're capable of doing. Not to say that they should be excluded for that reason, but it just in this current model that we're piloting through the contract model, we haven't tested out the things and learned the problems. So in that context, I think Newfane does make a lot of sense. There certainly could be other towns that it makes sense to work with as well.
What does Grafton do?
Grafton, they contract for about 3 hours a week.
Okay. So, Mark, how about if we try to broach the subject with Newfane and see where we get and talk to you, could your part be sending us a draft proposal, say, if we joined in with Jamaica and Newfane, and give us some options like this many hours a week, this many hours a week would cost this. And we are going into budget season soon, so we could use those things to budget.
Yeah, so each year, and we say, I think no later than November 1st, we send out what our annual rates are. And so that would define this. I can send you last year's version, but that will change for the upcoming July 2025. So it would give you an idea of what it would look like. I can also share agreements from the other towns that we have so you can see how it works. I do want to just clarify one thing. Through the contracts, we still service them in the same context, as in if you pay for 20 hours a week, 40 hours a week, whatever that number is, we still provide you that service. What we work out in the intermunicipal agreement is we're not going to necessarily say we're here from 7 to 3 and then we're going to be in Newfane from 2 to 10. Rather, we're going to be between the two towns, and it's on my office's responsibility to make sure that we provide you your full 40 hours, 20 hours, whatever that number is. So we do make sure that you are made whole. And then we also have a contract settlement process that we go through. If for some reason that didn't happen, we either write you a check, we roll it into next year. However, we square up with the town, we talk through that. But these are well-exercised, well-rehearsed muscles, so that we can make sure that we're on the up and up, but we can also provide the service that we want to provide.
Okay.
Al,
Yes,
can I ask a question?
sure. We have a question from the audience.
I guess I was curious on what services you're going to provide, to what extent. I mean, if you're contracting with Westminster and Putney, are you more in depth with them and your responses, whether it's a domestic or whether it's traffic or whether it's serving, a citation? In Townshend, I think if you can look back in the history, we had contracted with Windham County probably 6-7 years ago for X amount of hours. I want to say it was about 30,000. And I think you guys actually generated revenue for the town of Townshend, which actually offset our contract, if I'm not mistaken.
It's correct.
So that wasn't for responding to domestics and all those particular problems, which I'm not sure you would be handling under your contract, although it still falls under VSP. But more the speeding and violations, traffic, stop signs. Is that what we're asking for?
I don't know what you're asking for, but what I can say is the services we provide, we negotiate with the towns. And so if the town of Newfane said we want full response, 911, the whole shebang, and the town of Townsend said we want traffic, that makes it kind of harder programmatically, but not necessarily impossible. The one thing I do caution, and we've had towns run into this problem, is that saying that we're going to do the revenue generation. Yes, Vermont law does provide towns with revenue from traffic, certain traffic tickets. I have no issue with that. Not trying to say that we want to change that model or anything like that. But some towns are budgeting for anticipated revenues, and then there's some years where that revenue doesn't come in, and it becomes a problem with, well, why didn't it? I'm not in the business of writing tickets for money. We don't write a speed tax. What we do is provide public safety. And hearing the letter about the speeding, I agree, signs don't make sense. But if we were to talk about traffic safety, we're talking about the 3 E's: engineering, education, enforcement. Signs are engineering. Education, law enforcement generally does on the side of the road, as well as enforcement on the side of the road. But engineers also take care of the engineering portion. If we were to be in Townsend, only doing traffic enforcement, certainly state police could respond. All of our contracts are supplemental services, which means that we provide an additional service. It does not alleviate or remove the state police's response. What we've been experiencing, though, is that because, and I don't like to speak for the state police, I would encourage a conversation with Lieutenant French. But what we have been experiencing in the towns that we do provide this coverage is that the state police are often handing calls off to us because they don't have the resources to respond.
Question, like, was it last summer or the summer before when cars were being broken into and people were calling the sheriff, and the sheriff said, call the state police. State police had no clue really where Townsend was or how it was built really. If we had a contract with you, mostly for speeding, would you respond to those calls then?
It's all based on how we negotiate the contract. Using Putney and Westminster, they wanted full service. And so when we sign on with them, so each day we sign on in the 2 towns, they transfer 911 calls right to my dispatch. When we clear the town, so when our night shift ends, we let them know that we are now gone, and then they respond to 911 calls like that. And so we have a good working relationship with how we model that. I do want to just share one public service announcement. I worked with several Windham County legislators, as well as legislators from around the state this past session, to pass a law that makes it a crime to break into a car. It did not, it was not that way until July of this year. So stealing from a car was illegal, but breaking into the car was not. That is now a law. And so we can help people who are running into that problem. We would be able to help with that if we negotiated the contract that way. If you said we only want you doing speed enforcement, we would not respond to those things, and we would continue to say turn that over to the state police. Not what I recommend. Personally, I think that towns and really all emergency services should be held closely to the people and the voters, because they are services that do impact people. I often like to joke, you know who your sheriff is? Haha, it's me. Do you know who the various other providers are? And especially when it comes to state government, it's just a different model, and it becomes a little harder and a little less connected than the local resources you have. So to that end, I do personally believe that policing should be a municipal responsibility. I also think that there should be a way to alleviate what towns are paying to the state general fund to offset investments that they put into their local infrastructure. But we're talking big policy things and my philosophy, and that's not really here to talk about today.
Connie has a question.
Well, so it's my understanding that Ally has said what some next steps would be, which is that the select board here may decide to approach Newfane to engage them in a conversation. Ally has requested that maybe a proposal be provided from you, Sheriff, about a relationship with Jamaica and Londonderry. And I'm wondering if it's also possible to get an example contract that you could provide us for a traffic enforcement contract for a town. So
For both different type ones, traffic and...
Yeah,
Yeah,
or are there
for the
example
different services.
contracts you could provide us for the select board to look at?
That'll help us go forward.
Yes, I can provide existing contracts of the regionalized model, existing contract of the whatever else we want to call the other model. And then I'm certainly happy to make introductions to Jamaica and Londonderry to say, hey, is this something tolerable, similar to what you'll be doing with Newfane? Again, I would encourage that the town approach Jamaica and Londonderry, see if they're interested. They seem very happy with how it's working. I'm not sure if they feel how they would feel if they were expanding it. The difficulty for me would be that we're then going to be looking at having to bring in a half-time position, which then just becomes again an employment balancing issue that we have to undertake to make sure we have the personnel to actually provide the service. So this is where I like full-time positions. I can offer a person a job with benefits. More there's more in the recruitment pool if I come at it with things that people want to maintain a full-time profession. The amount of training that's required for law enforcement now, it's a lot harder for us to retain part-time personnel just because they're maintaining a full-time job elsewhere.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions? No. Okay, we will go forward. Thank you for your time. If you want to stay for the rest of our meeting, you can. If you want to go home and put your feet up, you can do that too.
Well, thank you very much for the offer. Have a good night.
You too. Okay, where are we? I think we're at old business now.
Yeah.
Kate, were you gonna address the economic recovery allocation funds, or did you want to pass that over?
No, I guess where I would start is what happened with looking into other IT companies. Were we not able to find out what other towns do for their IT, or?
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
You know, this is in reference to the Europa coverage that we were
So,
discussing.
I actually have a spreadsheet. I can provide it for you at the end of the meeting, or I'll send it off tomorrow. We did approach,
Two wired guys.
well, we approached Newfane, Wardsboro, Jamaica, and one other, I can't remember, about do they, I think several issues. Do they hire an IT company to service hardware and cybersecurity? And do they supply computers to their select board? And none of them supply computers to their select board. Most of them said that they try to do their IT in-house, and if they get stumped, they go to either a person or Newfane does two wire guys. Just to sort of help us out if we've got a glitch. I'm not hearing that there's a cybersecurity program or policy or that type of stuff.
It seems like we're the only one that has.
So we did approach two wire guys to have a conversation with us about working with us. They said that they have their businesses full and they would not take on an entity like us.
Another one of them said that the town clerk's computer was also used by the select board.
Yeah. So
they seem to.
that was a new thing, but.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, the regional towns, I think there was one other town, I can't remember off the top of my head, you know, don't go to this level or don't really do this.
Okay. I'm wondering how the board feels then about, I'm not sure that we should allocate funds if we're not sure that we're going to continue with Europa, or are we continuing with Europa, considering that we have had a breach that exposed an employee's bank accounts and paychecks and social security number in the past. As the allocation that I've put together for the local economic recovery grant, which is the $20,000, the $20,000 did come in and it's sitting there, you know, awaiting us our allocation. I personally feel that since we've had a breach before, and I understand, I've spoke with Sherwood at length about Europa, and why he feels strongly about it. What I did put in here was the coverage after our discussion last meeting. The coverage would cover Ally as the chair, doing a lot of the corresponding, and me as the grants coordinator, because I'm handling discussions about our money and our personal, our important town business and stuff like that. Also, because as an elected official and as the grants coordinator, I'm able to check that box that allows me to apply for the grants. Obviously, I come here for that permission, but it made sense to us in our smaller committee that we discussed it and at the select board meeting last time. So in this allocation, I put the desktop that we had all discussed minus a monitor, because it was mentioned that we already have one. So Europa had given us a estimate on a desktop, and I just took out the amount for the monitor. And that would, so for us, the desktop would be about $896. That desktop would be here, and it would be available for other select board members to do their research on. And to be able to use when you had action items and everything, so that would keep that stuff off of your personal device, which is something that Sherwood's been talking about a lot. The next item is the iPad for the road crew, which we've needed for a while. The reason that we need this iPad and why it has to be an iPad is because that's what all of these road grants through VTrans, you compile that information out on the road using the GPS that's in the iPad, and you take your pictures and you do all of your measurements and stuff like that, and that's the recommendation that they've made to stay compliant with their best management practices and things like that. So the estimated cost of the iPad is $1,135. That's going to include the iPad, which is cellular capable but does not require a plan, a hardened case, and a screen protector. That's all stuff that I asked Sherwood to make recommendations about and listed here. Europa, I just spoke about, that would be yearly coverage at $1,824 per user times 2 users. That would be Ally and myself. Estimated cost of $3,648. The next one is my wages. So early on when I proposed my position, I spoke to several other people who apply for grants on behalf of towns and on behalf of large corporations and all of this, and they said to me that if I could find a way to get my wages covered, I should. And that way it keeps the burden off of the town. Also because this position was voted in somewhat as an experiment to see if it benefited us in any way, and I think that if we're paying out money and we're not sure about how much money we're gonna take in, which is the nature of grants, then if I can find a grant that pays my wages, I should do that, and I did. So this would be assuming that you guys extend my position 6 more months. I make the casual labor rate at $17.54 an hour for up to 15 hours a week. So times 26 weeks, that comes to about $6,841. Another part of my original proposal that was voted in is this educational component. For both Jeremy and I, actually, it would include training and also the use of a consultant to edit for us and to look over anything before we submit, which I think that that's something that's pretty important for us as we are looking at the possibility of getting those 7 pre-applications approved. Plus all of the stuff we've been doing with the highway, there's a lot of tiers to that because there's about 3 different types of funding that we get that way. And anything that we might get in the future. Windham Regional helps us with a lot of stuff, and then I found through calling the state and speaking to the different grant organizations that they will give you some guidance, but if we have somebody that's already knowledgeable, able to consult with us, we should take them up on it. In my original proposal, that came to $2,650, so that again will be something that the town wouldn't have to pay for. That as we've waited to see how this grant position has developed over the past 6 months, and so I had not moved that part of my proposal, my original proposal forward, but I think that it's time to start to talk about funding that, and this might be a good way to do that. And then the last one is the fountain. So in my fountain grant that I've been working on, I found out that there was a lot of other things outside of just the aesthetics that were, and the crumbling actual pool and things like that were in need of repair. The town had asked initially, their response to me was, well, can we use it now? And I came up with a bunch of things that they would need to do in order to use it now. One of the biggest things, in my opinion, is the electrical that's over there is completely dangerous and needs to be dealt with. We still need to get an estimate on that. I've put a call into Falvey Pool to tell us what we would need to do about the equipment housing. Jeff Russ came out and talked to me about it. He also talked to me about the plumbing and the drain. And I said at that time that if I could put some money aside using this allocation, which the funding is already sitting there, then if we didn't get the grant for the other parts of the fountain, we could at least use what's there now. If we set aside this $4,830, that's just what was left of the allocated money. But also when I was looking at that again, say that I don't get the grant that I'm applying for right now. The estimate that the guy in Brattleboro, Matt Hyde, gave us for redoing the sculpture part of the fountain, the most important part in my opinion, came in at $4,600. So we could still do parts of that work. Obviously that doesn't take care of the electrical and the pump and the plumbing, but it would get us that paint job that it desperately needs, that stripping it down and building it back up. So I did want to put some fountain money aside here so that, we're not at a total loss if we don't get that other grant. So that's that last $4,830, which totals are $20,000 for allocating that money.
I have 2 questions or comments. My one comment is, it's interesting that all of our surrounding towns that we contacted do not spend the amount of money on cybersecurity that we do. And to me, that's concerning and needs further investigation. And then secondly, I thought when you proposed your grant writing position for the 6 months and then 6 months going forward, that your professional development was incorporated in the 15 hours a week. You were gonna use that as like learning time and...
it's that this money wouldn't be paid to me, it would be paid to the person teaching Jeremy and I the course and the consulting
And it would be within your 15 hours a week
Oh, yes.
that you were doing?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so this is to an outside consultant to help you?
Yes, that's what it was additionally proposed. It was in my scope of work that I had originally proposed to the town. In additionally proposed grant writing, education, and professional development training in the amount of $2,650. Grants coordinator will attend a grant writing education program and engage the support of a grant consultant to assist with state and federal grant writing and editing. Grant coordinator will work with the highway supervisor on select grant applications. This fee is separate from the grants coordinator.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anybody else has any questions or comments?
Comments go first, and then I'll go second.
You should go first.
Go ahead.
I just I think that Ally raises a very good point, which is, why is it that Townsend is heavily invested in cybersecurity? We know the principle of it, but why is the other towns not so invested? I think that is worth researching. I also don't know when our contract with Europa ends. I think it may be coming up soon, or maybe January 1st, and we may choose not to go with Europa. I do, however, think that since we have money that is coming to us that helps us budget for this item, I do think that it is worth entering into a computer and the IT support for the remaining of however long we are with Europa. I mean, we may decide to no longer go with Europa, but I do think it's worth doing Katie's proposal on the desktop and the
Coverage.
IT coverage for some duration, and this would cover that.
Nick?
So I want to go back to the Stone Arch Bridge project, just try to connect the two because we have, I think the balance is 7,000 that we would need to come up with that money, right?
So, yeah.
For the railings.
Yeah. We think we had that money by now.
We think we have that money.
Yeah.
Okay.
We think that's how it's gonna suss out.
Yeah.
It hasn't finished yet, but
Well, we think that's how it's gonna suss out, and if this was gonna be part of the report on the highway budget management team.
Mm-hmm.
We received more money from the state than we anticipated, and we think that that could cover the cost of the
Okay.
7,000.
Okay. I was going to propose if we move the desktop and the IT
Yes.
coverage into, a later date, and then we could kind of apply this in that way.
that's a good idea.
But just put that out on the table.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So that-
I do think that we also, with this IT coverage, when asking other towns, we need to ask them if they've ever had a breach.
Mhm.
Because I think that Sherwood, when he explained it to us last year and the year before, he was coming from a place of knowing that there were small towns like ours that had had significant breaches that the insurance company says, too bad, you didn't have IT coverage.
Mhm.
And in this day and age, with the way things go with the computers and everything, it's a possibility. It's happened to us once. Thankfully, it was small-ish. I mean, someone's paycheck to me is not small.
Right.
But in the larger scheme of your entire operating budget, okay, that was small.
Mhm.
A couple $1,000s, we still had to pay for it. So I understand why we wouldn't want to be shelling out all this money for something that we're not totally sure that we need, but also, isn't that how insurance works?
I know, I would like to see if there's any other options, because it gets so frustrating when you budget nickel and dime every $100 and then you start, spending Europa kind of money.
Mhm. And I don't think it's necessarily wrong that we're the only town that's doing this, and maybe we're a model for other towns in some ways. But I do think that there's kind of a sticker shock on the amount that we have to pay per user. And if there's kind of other ways that we can negotiate those prices down, and we can solicit other companies.
I think that's a good point. Because I spoke with Europa, with Connie, and I've spoken with them before.
Mhm.
And they do put together a package for you.
Mhm.
So that's worth revisiting,
Yeah.
finding out, what our concerns would be, what we're looking for this for. I mean, in one way, I feel like with IT coverage like that, you're sort of paying them to catch the things that you're not anticipating, right?
Mhm.
That's a big part of it. So that's one side of it. But on the other side of it, are there ways to pare down that number?
And do they have
And
competition?
What would that cover for us, and would that, would we be comfortable
Mhm.
having a different package? Because it did appear that they do have different kinds of
So
packages
how do we
Yeah.
want to
that they
proceed?
offer.
Yeah.
I mean, I could recommend
Change
that we
direction.
pass over that part, but, I don't know.
Yeah.
I do think that we do need to make some decisions on direction for the use of the money,
Yeah.
and maybe not all of the money, but I do know, for instance, the iPad for the
Yes.
road foreman
Definitely.
could be used ASAP as he's completing projects.
Yeah. And I
For
really think
grants.
that's the only point of, not contention or disagreement, but where we're just still trying to figure it out is this desktop and the Europa coverage,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and I-
iPad, the wages, everything else really makes
Could we
sense.
approve all of this, and then if our contract with Europa is only until December and 2 additional users until December would only be $1,200, say, just to throw out a number, then we just wouldn't spend all of it.
Right, we could always reallocate
Mhm.
after we get more information, definitely. And also, this money came about in a very, everyone was confused, and I've explained it. And also, not only did they not tell us what we can spend it on, and I had to figure that out, they sort of told us what we couldn't spend it on, but they didn't tell us how long we had to spend it.
Yeah.
And I think it would be important, it is important for us to allocate it, know what we're doing,
Mhm.
keep our records,
Mhm.
because we don't know how long you know, we don't know. And I know that with,
You're saying that they could ask for the balance back.
I'm saying that they
It's
gave
a
it to us
possibility.
and they want us to use it for things,
Okay.
and we should use it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because as we found out with, you know, lack of better terms, the COVID money, they changed it a lot
Mhm.
after the fact. They said, you're gonna get this money, but then they kept kind of changing how and what and everything. I did go through the VLCT to extensively find a lot of these answers for me, which was helpful, and I think that her recommendation was to allocate, so we're trying to allocate.
So can we as a board say, go ahead as written and let us know, is anybody willing to negotiate with Europa quasi?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I've spoken with them.
Okay.
Connie sits with me again.
Is there any other company other than?
We don't know that.
We haven't found
contract?
We've looked, we haven't found that.
I think locally that's the thing.
Warren has
Yeah.
something.
I was just gonna say, after working with the owner of Europa for 8 years personally, the company's established, he does a good job, he's local. And I don't know the finance numbers that we were talking about on exact services, maybe negotiating certain services.
Right.
But I'm gonna tell you that you make a phone call to Brattleboro, you can get that kind of support in a timely manner. If they're returning your call and giving you the support,
They are.
it's huge.
Yeah.
You can go with an outside firm, it's like ADT for your alarm system.
Mhm.
You're gonna be talking to somebody in India, nothing against that, but it's not the same, you know, like,
Mhm.
they're there,
I agree.
and I have customers that use them personally, and, they're established well.
Yeah.
Well,
Finances are
I mean,
finances and money's money,
I
don't get me
think,
wrong.
I think it's fine, look at your town report, and it's one of the big ticket
I jumped out,
items.
I was curious
Yeah.
how the coverages were.
It is a very big
Yeah.
ticket item, and then,
Just be careful when you shop, because you get it at half the price, you might get half of nothing.
yes.
So,
Well,
that's all.
also the, you know, the estimate that he had given us for the certain package that we use has a lot of things listed on there, but I think that if he broke it down a little bit for us and explained it a little bit more.
Mhm.
But again, like, these are things that they're doing the heavy lifting of like anticipating what we're not anticipating
Right.
because we're not as versed in it as
Right.
they are. And I do think because we've had a breach, it's really important for us to have coverage.
I will also just say that I think maybe these pieces on the Europa are kind of longer term,
Yes.
right? So this is not something that we're just talking about 1 year of coverage and we're set. This would be something that's recurring, and so maybe this is something, these funds can be put to something else, and then these can be brought just to town meeting, period, and just start it going forward with the next budget.
I guess that's gonna depend on when our contract with them is up, what
Yeah.
our contract year looks like.
Yeah, right.
You know, and for this allocation, I was just looking at things that were unexpected, that
Mhm.
happened after budget season, or that happened, you know, after town meeting, or right at the same time when there was no time for special articles. So, that's where a lot of this came from, just things that I know that have happened. And $1,000 here and $3,000 there adds up for
Mhm.
us, especially when we're not expecting it.
And I just want to double check, I know you've said this before, the iPad does not need an additional managed user, it's just.
It doesn't, nope, it's per person, not per machine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's fine for Jeremy to have what he already has and add it.
Although if we add additional apps, then there may have to be an additional user, but if
Okay.
it's just for the basic stuff that Jeremy's gonna use it for, it's not. an
The
issue.
one that Europa will have an issue with is other select board members coming in and using. Yeah, they might be listening.
Well, also with the more comprehensive stuff that goes on a desktop or a laptop, that's a different kind of coverage. There's a lot of setup involved. They do a lot of other things. With the iPad, they said this is very simple. There was no setup fee. They said we could just get it ourselves, and they just cover it, and they're covering Jeremy and what they know he already does. So that was streamlined for us at least, because I know that. And same with the desktop. For some reason, I guess because the laptop leaves the building,
Yeah,
there it's a little bit different. So if you
Yeah.
get a new one, that was a little bit different, is what they were saying.
oh, okay,
Remember, there was like $250.
I thought it was just,
the startup.
it's a
fee.
new one, so it has to be covered.
Maybe it was because they've already done the setup for the one that we already have in house that was given to Alanka.
Mhm.
So they probably already put their software into it and all of that. But
Mhm.
if we were to buy a new laptop,
Or the-
then they have to do all of this different setup stuff that they don't have to do with the other things.
Okay, thank you for what you're doing, and do we need a vote to go along,
To
go
approve the
forward?
proposal.
To approve? Anybody wanna make a motion?
I would move without the Europa and the desktop tonight.
Okay,
So I would be comfortable approving everything minus those two, which would be about, that's 4,500, I believe,
yeah,
45, 44.
is there a second? And then we can have discussion.
I can't vote, so.
I'll second that. I'm doing
Okay,
the math here.
and then any discussion, or shall we just vote? Yeah, Connie has,
Can I just raise, the longer that Katie or Ally does work on their private machines, the
Mhm.
longer, in theory, that's a problem. So, not that I have a vote, I just wanna reiterate
Yeah.
there
that
might be a
this is
selectman
money
next
that,
March.
it's not budgetary money, it is money
Yeah.
that has come to us.
Right.
And it would seem to me that at least getting the hardware, I mean, the machine is a no-brainer
Mhm.
because it's not money coming out of our budget.
Mm-hmm.
So I would really have you reconsider at least the issue of the
But the
desktop.
desktop.
And then the issue of the security, again, I would argue that it's a, $4,500 cost. And we don't even know if we're gonna spend that much because we don't know how long we're gonna be in a contract. But at least for the next couple months, to have the security that goes along with those pieces of machinery for two people who will be using it. So just gonna make a plug for the,
So it's
Voting of the
amend
whole proposal.
and accept as written.
again, it's your choice, I'm just in a discussion
I'm
part.
gonna nominate you for selectman next year.
Well, I will amend that to accept it as written. Okay, you want a second, then we can just discuss that.
Yes, I understand the reasoning. I'm just doing the math.
Mhm.
I think that it's important to allocate the
Do you want to
funds.
second his
You,
amendment?
all we're looking for is a second right now, then we'll discuss.
Okay,
Okay. Seconded?
yes.
Okay, now you can discuss.
Yeah.
No, I think it's logical. I think it's important to allocate the funds for the reasons that Katie described.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't necessarily mean they'll be spent.
And I think it's,
I have a hard time hearing you.
Oh, I said that I think it's important to allocate the funds, to have them allocated for the reasons that Katie described. Namely, we don't know how long we have to spend the funds. And if we don't have a plan, this is a plan for spending the funds. Doesn't necessarily mean that we'll be spending the total amount on the Europa coverage. So I'm agreeing with the idea of allocating funds.
All those in favor? Or did you have further discussion?
Well, we're not committing the funds, we're just,
creating a
okaying the plan.
scaffolding
Yep.
for the plan, yes. It's not like an article
Mhm.
at town meeting
Right.
where it's a scaffolding
Mhm.
and we can discuss it further if new information comes and we need to say, okay, we're not going with
Revisit the
Europa
Europa piece.
anymore.
Yeah.
But we have $3,648 towards some sort of IT coverage.
Can I just ask a question about that? So how would we proceed after tonight if it's not committing, are we not committing to spend the money? We're just committing to allocate them?
What I was understanding is that we're allocating the funds to these items. Later, what comes is an authorization to Elaine to actually pay
Pay
for those
them.
things, doesn't it?
But we
Isn't
could
that
also,
usually how we pay for things?
you could approve it, and then the assumption is that you're going to explore
Right.
purchasing the iPad, explore purchasing the desktop,
Then I guess we're at an impasse if we're either deciding to go with Europa right now or we're not.
well, we're already with Europa.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we're definitely finishing our contract and we're
Right.
gonna research.
So I guess, Connie, what I was saying is that then say our contract is up in January and we decide to go with a different company, we'll still have some funds that we had allocated for IT We're not gonna
Right.
still pay that to Europa.
I'm just a little confused when you say this is an allocation but not a commitment.
Yeah.
What is the next step? Because again, my opinion is there are two people who are doing a lot of work on personal computers.
Well, am I quasi protected with the .gov?
That's just for your email.
Not
It's just
really.
for your-
That's,
What
Which
if-
if that's all the work that's being done.
that's,
I guess what
Not Katie though, as a grant.
Yeah.
what could happen instead is a change of this wording.
Mhm.
IT coverage, that covers Europa,
Or
Or
whoever.
somebody
and then
else.
it covers us if we change when our contract is up. And I think personally, that's the only issue here. If we are passing this, we will get a desktop. We'll get the iPad. Changing Europa, well, this $3,648 is the estimate that we have on the table for the coverage for the chair. So let's say that, I guess we could change Europa to IT coverage for 2 users, Ally and me, and the money we have set aside for IT coverage for Ally and me is $3,648. If that makes more sense, that makes people feel more comfortable in the spending of that item, I think that maybe that's the way to do it. That way it's not confusing if we do switch companies. Does that make sense?
That also makes sense. That also makes sense.
And do you want me, we can change the wording on it.
Or somebody-
You can also make it a matter of the minutes with Connie, and then we'll have your changes in there.
So a matter of the minutes is that Katie is
Is gonna-
changing Europa to IT coverage.
Yes, and she'll give you a list that you can include in the minutes.
So then we're back to the amended motion to accept Katie's allocation proposal in its entirety.
As newly written.
Correct.
All right, so now we'll vote. And Katie's not voting, so all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
We've got 3 ayes. Okay. Can we move on to old business, folks?
That
Can
was
I
old
ask,
business.
can I ask one quick question?
Yeah.
I had 2 things I wanted to ask the town for about the fountain. And I
Okay.
don't know when to do that because I didn't get them on the agenda.
Okay,
A lot to go over.
we have an
Do you have a time deadline for the grant? Is this related to the grant?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
related to the grant. One thing is that part of the grant, and this is all dependent on if I get the grant funding. One, I was gonna formally request that the highway demolish the pool if that time comes. And the other thing I was gonna ask is if I'm able to have an event to celebrate the completion of the project, which also celebrates the completion of the gazebo and everything like that. It would be a sort of a gala where we turn the fountain on for the first time. And, you know, celebrate everything that we're doing. I found a local band that wants to play, and Nan, who has her food truck across the street, is gonna provide us with food, and it would all be part of what's called this placemaking initiative, which has everything to do with why we're getting the grant or trying to get the grant. So it wouldn't cost the town any money. Anything that it cost would come out of the grant funds and out of the donations of the key partners in the community that I've found so far to donate to us. But I wanted to have the permission of the town. I believe I'm looking at Saturday, June 28th. Connie and I talked about it. I was gonna have July 5th, but I think with the 4th of July, the day before, that wouldn't work.
Yeah.
So Saturday, June 28th, I expect the project would be completely finished, equipment, housing, electrical, whole entire thing, and I would like to have an event to celebrate that. And
So the biggest thing you're asking us for is the highway department's labor.
Yes, if we could have the highway department, if we do dismantle the pool of the fountain, I would like to have the highway do it instead of the contractor. It would probably
Just
take
like you
half
helped
a day.
us with the gazebo.
I was seeing it in the same vein.
Yeah, just under my scope of work, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
and you have the equipment.
Do we need
for
a
that.
vote on that, do you think, Connie, or
I'm
just
sure
make
somebody
it
will
a matter of
find out.
minutes? Okay,
All right, thank you.
you're welcome. And now we're on to the old grader plan.
What do you wanna know?
Well, I
We've been
know,
kicking this can down the road for 4 months, so.
Connie has something to say.
So Jeremy and I have been having a conversation the last 2 days in preparation for him reporting on the old grader plan. So can I just run through a summary of what you and I talked about?
Sure.
So, we all know that we had a conversation about scrapping, and we had an idea of, from Jeremy, what that cost would be, and he thinks it would maybe net us $5,000, right? So there was different options that we were going to look at. Get a cost on scrapping, get a cost of selling, get a cost of
United.
evaluating the cost to repair based on Sherwood's request. So we know that scrapping, we think, will get us about $5,000. The selling of it, Jeremy knows that there's 2 people have possibly expressed an interest, but that most likely we would do the process that was similar to the fire truck, where we put out a for sale notice with a minimum bid requirement. And so that is, an avenue to pursue, and he thinks that there are some people who may be interested. And Jeremy has a suggestion of possibly what the minimum bid should be. The tires alone are new and worth probably about $15,000. So you would actually start there as a minimum bid. Maybe it's a little bit higher to take into effect the actual metal and parts. So that's the second option, which is to sell it. Third option, but the third avenue that was requested was getting an estimate on the repair so that we can say we did our due diligence and view it as an option. Jeremy was to contact Colin Nystrom, who's not available to do the estimate, so the local person in town, getting it down the hill to somebody local is not going to work out the way we thought it was. There is a company, United, who's willing to do it. The cost to evaluate it is $1,336 to evaluate it, when we have to get the machine over there, which could be between $1,200 and $1,600 to get it over there and get it back. So you're looking at close to $4,000 to get it evaluated.
And we don't know what they would find.
Right. So I believe that Jeremy has gotten all the information that the board has requested. We do know that the landowner who is housing the current grader wants it removed. It's been going on long enough and he wants it removed. So the board does need to move forward on some kind of plan. Anything I missed?
Alright, I would have asked you this earlier, but I wasn't there. Okay, the tires are worth $15,000.
Roughly.
How long?
Brand new, they would be $15,000.
How long do grader tires last? Like, how often you switch those guys out?
Depending on how much money you spend on them in the first place. Just like anything else, cheaper is not always better. So the tires that are on there now are better quality than what we previously had put on in the past.
Yeah.
We should have got, when did we do those? We did those last
Fall, summer.
end of last summer. So they went through last fall in a very short amount of time this spring on the 4 rear tires. The 2 front tires were done the summer before. So rear ones are basically brand new, with the exception of 300 or 400 hours, maybe less. I don't know. And the front ones are still in really good shape.
So if you have them,
2 seasons probably.
2 seasons is how long you can use
It
them.
all depends on how much use they get. I mean, you could burn them up in the summer. You could not burn them up.
What Jeremy also mentioned to me is that without tires, nobody wants to ride.
But there was a price. for
Hours?
Hours, yeah.
Probably
Scrapping $5,000.
About 5,000.
Maybe.
He's saying about 300 hours.
Yes.
I'm just asking.
Warren just
because-
brought up a good point too, because we do a lot of towns will leave their equipment out on the road, so they're not traveling up and down. in the past 5 years since I've been here, we do not do that
Uh-huh.
because of previous select boards and concerns with vandalism, because we've had vandalism. So, just like everything else, you run them up and down the blacktop. Those tires are not made for blacktop, they're made for dirt and whatever, so they wear out quicker.
Yeah, and I'm only asking because you had a price for scrap, which was about $5,000.
That's, the price for scrap is top, the way I figured it out, to get top money for it, we would have to drain all the fluids and basically cut the machine apart and deliver it over there.
Oh, okay.
So, the price we get back compared to our labor in that, you know, I mean, we can just drive the machine over there, drop it off, take the tires off, but we're not gonna get crap for it, basically.
Yeah.
Because they'll have to do that with some.
Do you
So it doesn't
have,
include the tires then, the scrap?
No, the tire, if we did scrap them, I would definitely change the tires out.
Right.
Change the tires, or, you know, try to sell the tires to whatever, but.
right, and I was just trying to figure out if it made sense for us to keep the tires and get rid of the machine in
Running out of
a different way. Do you have an idea of what you think is gonna work best?
Say
Do you have an idea, which one of our options do you think we should go with?
I would say sell
That's what
Like the tires
it.
on.
We could send that thing to get diagnosed, and, you know, they say it needs a new motor. You have the numbers, I mean, the new motor's minimum $37,000 plus whatever else on top. But it's not the only thing that, I mean, the machine is 23 years old. It's got 11,000 hours on it, it's wore out. They should have, sorry, Alan.
Yeah, I would suggest two things, to the selling it route and getting it off the hill first. Like, how are we gonna get it off the hill? You know my option.
Yeah.
Didn't we talk
I mean,
about
either way,
this?
any way we do it, it's gonna cost us money.
Didn't we talk about it costing something like $150 to get it taken down off that hill?
Yeah, that would be the cheapest, is have somebody come and truck it off.
Right. I
Yeah,
think we
we
should start there.
Like we said, we talked about taking the chance of driving it down the hill, but if the motor blows,
Yeah, we're
then
not.
we gotta call service in, they have them
In
on
neutral,
brakes,
it's not gonna blow.
down a hill.
No.
You wanna drive it, go right ahead, I won't put one of my guys in it.
Okay, so we get the vehicle out of the property owner's property, and once it's in the town gravel pit, is that where you're gonna put it? That's the closest place.
Yeah, I mean, either or.
Yeah,
I
and
mean, none of the trucking companies are gonna bring it down the hill that way.
well,
They're
it's
gonna wanna
pretty
go
much
out,
of a
they're
hill.
gonna wanna go out East Hill,
It's pretty much of a hill anyway, but
but, I
okay.
mean, to be out of the way, that would be the best place to put it.
But I think we should go that way, that we get the vehicle wherever we want it to be, and then we put it up for sale.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah?
Was there, you had a company come over when it crapped out in the middle of the grading, right?
You know, they put a new turbo on it, which we spent almost $4,000 on.
So we bought a brand new turbo that's sitting on it
Mm-hmm.
for 4K, and it blew itself up.
Today.
Is the turbo any good?
Turbo's brand new,
For worth $4,000,
so it's $4,000
sitting on the machine,
sitting on the machine.
plus $15,000 of tires, and you want to sell it for 20, or 15 or 18 or whatever.
Whatever you
get.
get, I mean, you put a minimum out.
Right. So, as a taxpayer, and seeing some of your guys' heartache and headache of figuring out how to get money for equipment, we're now sitting on a lease for a grader, optional out in a year if we need to. Because as a taxpayer and taxpayers, we could come to town meeting and tell you, we're not picking up that lease anymore.
Yeah.
Well, what are you gonna do? Right? And I know you gotta maintain roads, and don't take this personally, but you could ultimately find that your motor isn't as bad, or is $30,000 something, or $40,000 something that the taxpayers can absorb in the next year or two, and you figure out your equipment fund and how you can progress with it to get back in the cycle of new equipment. Things are worn out. I mean, that's what we've heard, and nothing against you, but who's maintaining the equipment? It's worn out from just work, worn out from lack of maintenance or maintenance logs. I mean, we don't have tires when you show up. I mean, so we spend $15,000. That's something that should have been kind of worked through years prior, right, to have had at least tires set and stuff and money set for this stuff. The shoestring budget is confusing, but shelling out $300,000 or $400,000 over the course of the next few years is kind of painful. So although you're going to spend $3,000 to $4,000 to get it diagnosed, and it may be money that you don't feel is well spent, you already put $20,000 into it, and you're willing to scrap it. So the taxpayer getting it evaluated and appraised, and if United's the one that came and evaluated and said you need a new turbo for $4,000 and you start it back up and things shred and go in the motor, do you really want them working on it next time to evaluate it? I mean, I don't know who else does
The
it.
turbo blew up and stuff went in the motor from the old turbo. They put the new turbo on and it was still running.
So prior to putting the new turbo on, instead of diagnosing it a little bit further before spending the $4,000 and putting shrouds of metal into the motor, we slap a new turbo on and we hit the key and the crap hits the fan, right? That's an expensive way to learn that there's stuff in the motor.
The turbo blew up on the road.
Right, but you put a new one on and then they fired it back up and it went further
Well,
south.
the technician that came out on the road said, "No, your turbo's down."
Right.
And
But knowing that it could have possibly put stuff into the motor, when the turbo blew up, parts had to go somewhere. So the $4,000 that we put into the turbo, the $4,000 should have been put on a trailer and get it to the shop to diagnose it further before putting the $4,000 piece of equipment on that ultimately is no good because it didn't solve the problem and created more. So that's water over the dam, so to speak, but I'm looking at it as an opinion going, well, we already spent $4,000 on it, we can't use it, and now we really still don't know why, but we're willing to spend $400,000 over the next few years when maybe we don't have to.
So Warren, the long and short of what I'm hearing you say is that you think it is worth spending the $4,000 to get it analyzed before we make any big decisions.
But are you saying also maybe not with United?
I'm only stating what I've heard, and it's not my business. I've overheard things, and you never know what's what. But I'm trying to go about this in common sense because that's the way I function. But those are just me thinking about what's kind of happened and occurred and where we're at right now. And yes, we have a piece of equipment and it's working. I mean, see, roads are getting graded. That's awesome. But at the end of the day, we're going to pay a pretty good heavy penny, and ultimately we need to anyway for the equipment. We all know how that works, but.
And, we have said many times that we're working on our inventory and our maintenance logs and depreciation schedules so we won't find ourselves in this pickle again. And it was quite a pickle to have a lot of the equipment be subpar.
Well, 14, 15 years ago, Mr. Boschman was the foreman. He started the cycle. And I don't know what happened.
I don't know.
Because we were buying brand new trucks every other year and other pieces of equipment. And then for whatever reason, if the next foreman wanted to be on a shoestring and make things look good or was worried about so much about a budget while you're sitting there at the desk and not thinking a little bit further in the future, it
I
hurts you.
agree with you
so
totally.
please don't put that blame on me then.
I'm not putting it on you. I've said that multiple times. I'm stating what I've heard, what I've seen, what I understand. So it's not one person at fault. It's just you're in a predicament, and you were in a predicament of figuring out the money to do it. I'm just nervous that at least we have the year out option of the lease, because technically you can't spend $400,000 that we never gave you permission to spend.
Right.
So in March, we may be in a nice little pickle. If you have the $4,000 to at least evaluate, come back to the taxpayers and say, listen, we spent the $4,000. It's going to cost us $60,000 to repair, and they're advising us that there's another $20,000, $30,000 of other pieces of equipment, whether it's moving pieces, arms, hydraulics, that you really should be fixing in order to get 10 years out of it. You have your ammo, at least as a select board, for the taxpayer who can maybe digest spending $300,000 or continuing the lease. That's what we're asking.
Well, the lease does have a purchase at the end. We were very careful to get into a lease so that the roads could be graded and so that at the end of our lease agreement, we could buy the piece of equipment for $1.
Sure.
So,
And
Yes,
we were very
that is all
specific
well
not
good,
to
but it's
enter
been-
into a lease unless it had exactly as you said it.
Right. Well, it's been sitting there since April. So it's now September. And you've worked through a lot of curves and maneuvers, and you had one that was rented and things got done in a manner. I just feel like as a taxpayer, you're not doing total due diligence if you can tell me what it's gonna cost to fix this thing and put it back on the road for less than $350,000, $400,000. It's a hard pill to swallow.
I agree, and I feel that the nature of this position, in my experience with it, where we're making these decisions about equipment that I personally know nothing about, I need to know things like that. And as we were scrambling to put the plan together to get a grader on the road to do the work and figure out what we were gonna do about it, I was definitely lacking in any kind of input outside of, this is what we need to get on the road. And I think that we should get it diagnosed, and I think that we should get it down off that hill and get it diagnosed so that we can at least know that we're doing the right thing. I don't want to go about it where we just throw it away and have the town upset that we didn't take one more step. Especially, I didn't realize the amount of money that we put into the turbo. I don't know why I missed that, but.
Why didn't we just do this in the first place then? Why did we kick this can down the road all summer long?
That's a good question.
It comes with a job. It comes with a job, not being, but these are things you've got to advise them on. I mean, as you're the road foreman, and you've got to make those decisions. As a taxpayer in the town, we gave the town basically $200,000 this year to put in an equipment fund to try to help with equipment problems as they come and make your life better, and more operational. I don't think anybody in the town expected to spend all $200,000 on leasing a grader and leasing a backhoe and buying a trailer and leasing, an excavator. So that $200,000 went like that. Now next year you're hoping you're gonna give you another $200,000 plus on top of the $200,000, by the way, we're gonna add to your account the grader lease for that year, again, this year, and for the next 5 years after that. It really should be noted that we checked it, we did spend the money, but we felt the money was well spent to know that without a doubt, we're in such a hole with that piece of equipment that we can comfortably move on and get something new.
Is there any way that United could come down here and we could save the $1,600 round trip trucking?
They want to do it in the shop.
Are there any other companies, or are they?
The person that for $150 could bring it off the hill, could they bring it to Springfield for less money?
Well, yeah, the $600 one way or whatever it was. It's an hourly rate from Townsend to Springfield, Vermont.
That our trucker would be charging us, not United?
Correct.
Oh.
I mean, we could have United send their trucking company down to get it, but it'd probably be more than.
They couldn't analyze it at the town barn, that's on site.
They want to do it in-house at the shop.
Are they the only act in town?
Excuse me?
Are they the only ones around?
They are the John Deere dealership for the area. I mean, there's private companies, but just like anybody else, everybody I've called doesn't either. We put out 10 paving invitations. We had 2 guys show up the other day, 1 guy show up, 1 company.
Yeah,
Just because there's other companies around doesn't mean they want. Like Colin, I asked Colin if he wanted to do it. He said, "I don't have time."
Okay, so let's move this decision, folks.
The decision being to,
Figure out what we're gonna do.
I'm in favor, I think you're in favor of putting it for the assessment, right?
Yeah. So, make a motion?
It's a strong case. It is really hard to go back to the town without a definitive answer as to what.
And Sherwood brought that up maybe 2 meetings ago as well, like that we can't go forward without having something written on paper to show.
Yeah.
I think someone wrote a letter about it to Sherwood. Yeah.
Right.
I'd like to make a motion to have the grader taken off of the hill and brought to United for, in Springfield for an evaluation.
Seconded.
Any further discussion, board? No? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
Hey, Union United, if the diagnosis is no good, they take the turbo back and do it.
I don't vote unless it's a car.
Trade it.
Watch.
Does that ever work out for you?
When they were. I voted because I really felt strongly about that one.
So you're abstaining this time? Is that
Yeah.
it?
Okay, was there a question or a comment there, or should we move along? Okay, let's pass over did you want to do an update or pass over C for now until next week?
It's the same.
Select board,
Well, the only thing, I'll just say one thing about the healthcare.
we're gonna pass over C except for a piece that Connie wants to enlighten us with.
So this section, just for people in the audience, is the select board has chosen different budgetary areas to start working on prior to budget season, so that we go in with more information and more research than just going in blindly and trying to make budgets. Katie Morrow and I volunteered to work on the healthcare costs area of the budget, and I just want to give the board an update that we have been notified by the state of Vermont. VLCT has notified us that the state of Vermont has approved the increases for Blue Cross Blue Shield and MVP. That's 22% increase for Blue Cross Blue Shield and 11% increase for MVP. I reached out and tried to get Blue Cross Blue Shield to give us what our increase is gonna be. It's a little too early for them to do that, but they think it's gonna be in the area of 23.1% increase, which is very hard to swallow.
Also,
And
this
this
last
past-
year was 14%.
14 this last year, and now at almost 24 this year.
So Katie and I are beginning to put together data on, are there other options besides MVP and Blue Cross Blue Shield? We don't think there is, because we are a self-funded entity, so that narrows our options. And we are beginning to try to nail down what the costs are for the different plans at Blue Cross Blue Shield and MVP for starting January 2025. One option is to look at altering the type of plan that we offer. Another option is to switch carriers. Hopefully their networks are similar, but we can look at switching carriers. So instead of a 23.1% increase, we could be looking at an 11% increase if we switch carriers. So that's things that we're beginning to work on, but it's a pretty serious thing that we're facing, and so I really would ask that the board, be engaged. We would have to move on this prior to budget season being over, because if you decide to switch carriers, you have to do it in November for a January switch. So there will be more to report on, but it would be pretty important that, we have.
And the increase happens before our budget time, so we're spending money that we haven't budgeted for. And the other thing to think about is that if we change the benefits that we give, it could affect families and employees and elected officials, so there's a lot of moving parts.
So just wanted to put that on your radar, that there's gonna be stuff that we have
And
to.
the rest we'll put on the agenda for next, on the 24th. Open the paving bids.
I think that Kate will do that. So Kate, when you read the bid, it's to basically read what the bid is for, right, Katie? And then get a sense of real scope of work and then the cost.
Yeah, here's the repair. This is from Vermont Roadworks LLC, and it's for patching on Windham Hill Road, and it describes the types that the amount of patching, 776 square foot, 17 different areas. It also includes the fuel charge and doing an asphalt patch on Dam Road of 210 square foot. The total amount for this bid is $9,200, and it comes along with a certificate of liability insurance. So that's Vermont Road Works.
Could you read the amount again, please?
A total of $9,200.
Thank you.
And this is from VIII Brothers Trucking Incorporated, second bid. And this is also to repair 17 different locations on Windham Hill Road, and also on the Dam Road. And includes providing traffic control. This other one does not mention traffic control. The total amount of this bid is for $17,823. And
So traffic control.
there is a certificate of liability insurance attached. So it was $17,823. It's $9,200 from Vermont Road Works and $17,823 from VIII Brothers Trucking, excavating, paving, and crushing.
Jeremy, did you expect there to be that much different in price?
I did not expect that much. I didn't expect either one of them to be that high, but I guess it is what it is. Like I said, we sent out ad invitations. We had 2 companies show up, so it's.
So what do we do about traffic control if it's not built in?
Well, it was stated in the bid that it was supposed to be traffic control included.
And it might be in Vermont Road Works.
I'm sure it is.
You can give them a call.
I'll give him a call.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're both reputable.
You have equal faith in both companies?
Absolutely.
I'd like to make a motion to accept Vermont Road Works LLC bid for the patching on Windham Hill Road and the 210 square feet on Dam Road for $9,200.
With Jeremy checking about traffic?
Traffic control.
Okay, with Jeremy just confirming they're giving us traffic control.
Mm-hmm.
Seconded.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Did you vote on that?
No. Okay, now, Warren, we have the dog issue.
I do.
We do. We had an issue, I'm not gonna use names because I don't wanna have to go into executive session. I wanna talk about a dog policy in general. When we had this issue, I looked up to see if we had a dog ordinance, and the only thing that I found was a draft from 2011. And I looked through the records to see if it had ever, it's an unsigned draft, and I looked through the records to see if it had been recorded, and it had not. I contacted several people that were involved in the issuance of this draft, and they said they thought it was never actually enacted. And the only thing I found in any minutes that I went back to look at was that somebody had tabled it at one point, and then Hurricane Irene hit, and it got forgotten. So I would be pretty sure that we only have a draft at this point. When I spoke to Warren about his role in such matters, he told me to look up the Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns Handbook on Vermont Municipal Dog Law, the big book of woof. And so I have a copy of that, but I'd like Warren to tell us the situation, not mentioning townspeople, were two people walking their dog after dinner on a leash. A dog runs out of a neighboring house onto the public road and beats their dog up. And it's happened several times, and they've tried to be neighbors and said, hey, can we make this work? And the neighbor said, well, just call me when you want to take a walk and I'll make sure he's not outside. And they said, well, what if I can't get you? And we should be able to walk on a public road. So they called town hall. And that's how the whole search for an ordinance came about. Both dogs are registered and vaccinated, so that's not an issue, but I'd like to turn it over to Warren for his opinions on where we stand and should we enact an ordinance.
Well, I mean, I've spoken with one party, I haven't spoken with the second. I've spoken with the people that were on the road who were feeling threatened by the neighboring dog. I have not talked to the owner of the dog, which I had planned to do, have a conversation. A lot of times we can settle things in a civil manner without having to get too crazy about it. So that I will do, and I'll let you know how that turns out. I had a chance today to glance at the draft. That's the first time I've ever seen it. So I had 20 minutes during my lunch to look through it. I mean, there's good points. I think as a board, you all should look at the ordinance and maybe digest it.
This draft ordinance.
It's a good footprint.
Okay.
I mean, for again, 20 minutes, and I want to read through it a little further. There's a couple of points, but I'm not, some of it's the terminology of how many days. If you have somebody that's had a problem and bitten, and then you need to hold a special meeting, there's a little bit in that big over wolf about the timing, and it's great. Everything you want to do with the state of Vermont and anything to do with animals in this state is extremely great. We fight it tooth and nail again, so being civil and try to work through the parties and doing the best we can is typically the action that we take. I would look at it, digest it, talk amongst yourselves, think about it. I mean, you have to warn it. It has to be given to the town, I believe, in order for it to even become an ordinance that would be an acceptable ordinance. There's a due process that has to happen. I don't know all of the steps. Am I in favor of it? There's pieces of it that would make my life easier sometimes, but there's also pieces that's not really going to change.
Would you be willing to go over yours and put some little comments?
I can.
So that we can then convene as a board and do the same?
Yep. It's hard. I mean, the fine is like not licensing your dog. What's the $5, $10 fine mean to you as a dog owner? And just either I don't want to deal with you and I don't want to license it. It doesn't really persuade the person one way or the other. Writing a letter for me to go out and talk to them or take their dog or seize the dog. Read through this. There's many steps you got to take, and lawyers you got to get involved before we go in and pound somebody's dog with strong licensing for the $5 fee. I agree with the licensing. It's an important part. It's vaccination. If you have a child yourself, somebody's bit by the dog, it has not been vaccinated, then you are forced to go through the regimen of vaccination for yourself and rabies. And I try to. Anytime I run across people that have a dog that is not vaccinated or they're not sure or it's not licensed, I'm not here to arrest you, hound you. All that helps me do is a couple of things. One, when your dog's running free and you don't know where it is and now you want help finding it, I know it's licensed. I know roughly where it lives. I know its breed. I got your phone number. I can probably help you out. And then the other piece of it is hugely as a citizen and I got bit by your dog and it's not vaccinated or you can't tell me it is, that's a very uncomfortable feeling and not good. So those are the driving points for the licensing and vaccination. It makes really, really good sense. The dog ordinance, there's pieces of it that may help. At the end of the day, if the guy doesn't want to put his dog on a leash in his dooryard or train his dog how to not barrel out into the road and harass the people that are walking by, $10 fine, $50 fine, he may not really care about, hoping a civil conversation will get them to change their mind or at least be better about behaving with their dog or getting their dog to behave. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I will speak to the party and the other party, and hopefully we can get something that's good for both.
Good.
And the ordinance, look through, is all your spare time. And if you get the big book of Wolf,
We got it.
oh, it's fun nighttime reading. You're guaranteed not to put you to sleep.
That's why they gave it such a catchy title, right? So
yeah,
we will put it on the next meeting's agenda and we will go from there, but thank you for your time. Can't read your handwriting. Blocks.
I'm saying if you want it.
while I'm here and you've summoned me to come, is there any, have you got any further with your goat issue? I haven't heard or seen any.
My what? Oh, goats. I haven't heard anything.
Haven't seen them on the road.
Anita said she did see them on the road, but that was only one person.
Her road or 35?
I think 35, but,
Grafton Road, sorry.
yeah. But it hasn't been a huge complaint like it had been, so I think they are trying to curtail
I
them.
had heard that they were trying to contain and get fencing and keep them corralled. I haven't spoken with them directly, but I would think I was away when you were having this issue.
Yeah, and the man called and he was very compliant and very willing to make things work and,
Yeah.
you know, said how much he liked the town and how everybody was friendly and, you know, trying to help him. So that was a good feeling. So thanks.
And for Connie, for Alenka, Mike Cutts is the second constable as far as I know. He's he does the same duties that I do. We share, and we don't do a lot of communicating. Typically, not a lot of problems as far as dogs are concerned, so which is a great thing. But if I'm unavailable and Alenka's looking for somebody, and you're kind of looking for a little bit quicker response or possibly another response because you haven't gotten a hold of me, obviously
I know she does try calling.
Okay, but
Yeah.
just so people know, you can at least try. Yeah.
I think in our between meetings investigation into the ordinance, also I used to live in Newfane and I saw them enforce their rules about dogs there, and they were successful and it was amicable with the parties, and they must have an ordinance in place, and it might help us as we look at this one to see what theirs is and what their procedure is, because I had a neighbor that had an unruly dog and they went through the steps and she did build a fence and all of that. So wasn't my complaint, it was somebody else down the road, but I've seen it in action, so it doesn't hurt to ask anything.
Good idea.
Yeah, I can do that if you want me to.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, and then Connie had an idea on what to address for the end of the meeting.
So it's approaching 9 o'clock. I think if the board board can decide to just plow through and go through the remaining items, which are pretty straightforward, but there is several of them, which is 1, 2, 3, 4 requests to either use town hall or the commons. All of these requests are not time sensitive except for the last one, which is Leland and Gray musical rehearsals. The other ones are not going to be taking place till either the end of October or November. So you can either.
I would suggest that we act on the last one and ask Connie to put the others on next time's agenda. Is that okay, folks?
So moved.
And so then let's look at town hall.
Wait, so moved, did someone second and
Oh,
and
second.
vote
To table
to
this.
not?
I think I sort of made a motion.
Well, and so moved, Nick said so
Katie
moved.
just seconded.
Okay.
Okay,
Can I ask a question?
sure.
Why don't they use the gym? Why aren't they using the Dutton building?
For the rehearsals.
Yeah, why do they have to use the town hall? They've
They
always used
did
the
not
Dutton
say
building
that
in
in
the
there.
past.
They did not say that.
And I believe if it's the same as last time, they have classes there during school.
They have classes at the gym?
Uh-huh.
They do, and they changed over. There was a different company doing their theater last year. Now they've moved to a different director, and you have to do the booking for the space ahead of time, from my understanding. And so if they were transitioning to a different director, they wouldn't have been able to do any of their booking in the meantime.
Okay.
So then they're kind of at the mercy of whatever's left.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay. Okay, have you had the chance to look at the?
Should we vote? We didn't vote yet.
We didn't
To
approve.
next
So only handles one.
We vote, all those in favor of just handling one, aye. Opposed? So 3.
Alright, I'd like to make a motion to approve Leland and Gray's musical rehearsals happening on Sundays from 1 to 4 and Monday through Friday from 2:45 to 5 as needed in September and October. I'd like to add that the fee would be waived and I'd like to authorize Ally to sign on behalf.
seconded.
So now we can discuss it.
All right, any discussion?
So this is for the upstairs, right?
Yes. And the discussion I would put in is that we should talk, especially since it's somebody new, talk about windows, talk about the curtains, talk about the do's and don'ts upstairs.
He's not brand new. I mean, he works at the school and he has worked on one of the other productions that I know my daughter was in.
But I still think it's worth
Yes.
reiterating.
Get on the same page.
So he's not brand new.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So 3. I'll talk to you about that tomorrow. I want to go home tomorrow. It's
Adjournment.
calling me. Anything else, folks?
Quick question, Bob had to run out, so I didn't really get a chance to quiz him, but this generator piece was a little confusing to me, but so you have information for one for the town garage, and
I'm happy
This
to
doesn't-
leave the information at the counter with the Leica for you tomorrow.
This is why I was also confused, because I remember the conversation being that they wanted one for the
They
garage
did.
and they wanted one for town hall, which is why we put both applications in, assuming that they had all of the information that they needed, because he gave us a packet like this.
74 pages.
Yes,
Yeah.
with all of this in it, which is the only reason that we filled out those pre-applications.
I know we've looked at this years and years ago, I think when David Diesendorf was still around, and there was different mitigating factors that just didn't make it work, and I've helped the town out over the years and would do it again. And I also wanted to kind of step away from some of these activities, and my feeling was the generator piece of it, it's good to hire a company that sells and services generators. I feel like you are gonna need it and you're gonna expect it to be running when you want it. That's what it's for. And I can sell them, I can install them, but I don't really give you the same service factor. The concerning piece for me was because I know both buildings and know both facilities, and I'm not sure what size we're pushing to the garage when I was told that it was the whole garage.
Yeah.
Connie's just made a note to leave the data for you at
Well, while the road foreman's here, and I think we had a conversation about this before, not to put you on the spot, we kind of know what it does. It does fuel pumps, one door, some
No
lights.
doors.
I think there's one door on it.
None of doors.
In the panel listing, and I didn't wire the town hall, or the town garage, but I thought there was something I saw. I know the fuel pumps were easy enough to move in. So what were you needing more of?
I'd like to be able to have the doors, for one, because they're old, and they're a pain in the butt to get up and down.
Yep.
Fuel pumps.
Yep.
Heat, obviously.
Which are already covered. Lights,
Lights.
full lights.
And to be able to run a welder if needed, in a state of emergency.
And which side of the welder you have? Stick welder, you got a MIG welder, you got a Miller?
We have both.
What would, yeah, okay. So 50 amps max.
Yeah.
For the power. The only reason I'm bringing these questions up is because there's currently a 100 amp generator transfer switch installed with a circuit box that has necessity needs in it. It's not an automatic generator, it's one they roll out and they deploy. One of the early conversations we had was to buy a generator that would suffice Jeremy's needs. When Bob tells me he's gonna cover the whole building, and it's 35 kW, it's 35,000 watts, so quick math is 145, 150 amps. What do you need 150 amps for? And there's there's one 400 amp service, which is confusing at that garage, but there's two 200 amp mains. So you can't cover the whole building. There's two 200 amp mains when that thing was designed and built. And this has been one of the problems too. So if you're gonna buy a 35 kW generator, and it's great that it's grant money, but it's still federal dollars I'm paying for that too. I'm also a taxpayer. Now you're gonna have to add propane. You got a 1,000-gallon tank. You're gonna add another 1,000-gallon tank, $10,000-$12,000 to this thing. Then that thing's gonna sip fuel, whether he's running 5 lights, the welder, or everything, or nothing. It's a little bit of less fuel consumption under full load, but that thing is gonna suck fuel down. So when you need a 60, 80 amp generator, a 20 kW generator would cut all your needs every day of the week, be a lot less money and a lot more efficient, and you might save yourself, definitely, I don't know about a propane tank, you might save because you have 1,000, because you have heat on it too. It has to do with the vapor barriers in a tank at cold temperatures enable for it to produce fuel. Sorry to bore you guys, but these are things that I would like to look at just as a taxpayer to have knowledge of, because I think it's public knowledge. It should be, right? I'm not saying don't do it. It's a great idea. It kind of needs one. So doesn't this place. But this is a different animal for a different time. And I will definitely enlighten you guys about this building anytime you want information.
Is that a pun?
What's that?
You're going to enlighten us?
Yes, why don't we make a motion that we will research? Do you want us to leave that information at the desk?
I don't
for
really
you?
glance over it because I don't want to pay for another 1,000-gallon tank and have that thing
Yeah,
burn
well,
6
that's
gallons
fine.
a minute when it's
And
burned and he's not even there and he needs the heat on.
And I'd appreciate your opinion as well.
And this is
So
an
Connie
ongoing
will
conversation.
copy that and leave
This
it
is
in
starting
Alana's
in
desk
January.
for you.
Please.
And then you can stop and talk to Jeremy anytime you want, and we can adjourn.
I just want to say one thing, the pre-application that we did not have any specifics in it. It was that we were seeking generator, and it could cost, I don't know, however much it was, $50,000, whatever it was.
Right.
So there's no specifics in there. So that
And
was,
it's good that it's grant money,
Yeah.
still our money, we've all pooled for it, it's been picked up by the feds and,
Yeah.
and run through their fingers and now redistributed in different ways. But
yes.
at the end of the day, we will have to maintain it, we will have to pay for the fuel that is burning and what it's doing, and the cost of the installation, because we're gonna cut the whole thing versus moving some circuits, which I think I've looked at, and it's not, it can be done, but he's sitting here telling you gotta get in motion, get it in, the storm's coming. Well, sometimes slowing down, you go faster.
Okay.
I know, I'll let you-
We have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second,
Are you gonna be a selectman in March?
I don't know if you guys will be here.
So we all voted, or you voted?
You still have to sign the warrant.